Before I start the show with this week's guest, Todd Franzen, I want to tell you about Todd's nonprofit, strapinforlife.org. Strap In for Life provides annual trips to deserving families and couples impacted by cancer to the DO Tour in Breckenridge, Colorado, including travel, lodging, dining, lift tickets, snowboard lessons, VIP credentials, athlete meet and greets, and more. 100% of donations to Strap In for Life goes to the cause, as all their work is done by volunteers. Please pause the show and donate now at strapinforlife.org. And if you or a loved one has been recently diagnosed with cancer, Todd's YouTube channel, Internalarchitect, has hundreds of videos that can help you navigate this challenging time. Okay, let's start the show. The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Season 7 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Time Bomb Trading, the Canadian distributor of Stance, Dragon, 32, and much more, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Tribute did a split board collab this year with Wired Snowboards, and the boards look sick. The Crest Series split is new for 2022, and Tribute designed a sick crow flying over the Kootenays graphic in one of the raddest collabs ever. Select sizes are on sale now at Tribute's website, so if you're looking for a new board and you want to support rad people and ride a handmade board from BC, pick up a Crest from Shane and Mark at Tribute Board Shop. Tribute offers everything you need to have an amazing time snowboarding or skateboarding. Drop by their store in Nelson, BC, or shop online at tributeboardshop.ca. Support also comes from Grouse Mountain, Mount Seymour, New Greens, Volcom, Intuition, and GoPro. Thanks to everyone who supports the show. Todd Franzen became a professional snowboarder in the early 90s while he was still in high school. Riding for Morrow and getting on the original Bonfire Pro team by 16 years old, Todd was a staple in Transworld and Snowboarder magazines and got to travel all over the world to compete and shoot footage. I met with Todd at his home in Breckenridge, where he works on videos for his YouTube channel, Internalarchitect, and helps to run his nonprofit, Strap In for Life.
When we started Strap In for Life, which is a cancer awareness nonprofit, kind of like Make-A-Wish in a sense, but for kind of snowboarding, really snow sports in general. Our mission is to help those that have been affected by cancer through on-mountain experiences.
Rad.
And we raise money to help people that are directly affected by cancer through just fundraising and stuff like that, to get them experiences, whether it's at events like DO Tour, which is coming up here in a couple weeks, or done some stuff in X Games as well. And we've also done separate trips to, there was a gentleman, Tommy, who lived in just outside LA or in the LA area, and he loves snowboarding, but he was diagnosed with a real rare type of cancer, carcinoma style cancer. And he reached out to us, and we ended up, I ended up flying out to LA, picked him up, and we went up to Big Bear for a day.
So sick.
And I actually cut a little piece that's on my personal YouTube channel, made a little video for him. And
dude, that's so epic.
His family got to see it and everything. He unfortunately passed away from it.
Sorry to hear that.
But this was kind of the last time that he was able to get into the mountains and to snowboard and to really enjoy kind of the thing that he loved the most. What a wonderful
thing to get involved with.
Yeah.
What was the catalyst for that?
So, rewind to 2013.
Yeah.
I should actually rewind. Let's rewind back a little bit to, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma in December. Well, when I think about this, this is, when I cancer is kind of one of those things in my life that has really done more than been like a hard thing to deal with. It's been yes, a very, very hard thing, but it's one of those things that really brought a lot of purpose and focus into my world. I was diagnosed in 2009 with stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Oof.
Basically, November 5th was kind of the thing that really instigated all the tests and everything that led to me being diagnosed. And then 2010, I ended up going through all this treatment, a lot of reoccurrences during this period of time, and was able to get into remission for a stem cell transplant that ultimately led to 8.5 years of remission for me. And then,
so for the total layperson that doesn't know what remission is, that's your body's found cancer free. Is that correct?
Right. I am not experiencing any signs of growth at that point.
Yeah.
And then in 2019, I started kind of having some issues breathing. And it was weird because I've been really active, kind of really was spending a lot of time working on my fitness and kind of getting back into a really good shape. And basically March, April, May, I was feeling good. Like,
yeah,
when you start feeling good, your confidence comes back and everything else. And
totally.
And that's where I was at. I was coming back, but June kind of kicked in. Things started to kind of feel a little bit different. I was having an issue breathing, not a good way. I was kind of dealing with some higher heart rate stuff, and then I was mountain biking with some friends, and one of these climbs just wrecked me. Like, I normally wouldn't have as much problem climbing. And the rest of that day was just kind of tough. And that was the thing that triggered me to go in. And the next day I ended up getting an x-ray, and my primary doctor saw something in an x-ray that didn't look right. And so I was kind of sent over to an oncologist in Vail. And that's when things unfolded again. And through an ass load of testing and blood work and everything else, we found out that my Hodgkin's had come back. So I came out of remission. So basically from July to October 29th of 2020 was filled with treatment of all sorts that did and didn't work. I ended up going through, on October 29th, I went through another stem cell transplant. And this was done as a donor transplant. So there's different types. You can have a donor, or you can use your own. There's the ways of actually getting your stem cells is very similar, except one's with a host and the other is, And my brother, through all this typing and all this testing that we did, we found out that my brother was a 10 for 10 match for me.
Rad.
And we went through it. And on October 29th of 2020, I did my second stem cell transplant for lymphoma. Man. So at this point, I'm about 13 months in remission.
Oh man, that's good to hear.
And I'm getting stronger. Things are working correctly.
Right.
Which is
right.
All you can really ask for at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound, technical or cold, but like I'm wondering about, because I'm Canadian, right? Like, sure. So I'm like, if I go to the hospital, there is no barrier to going there ever where I would think, oh, fuck, this is going to cost me out of pocket.
Sure.
I mean, it's like that at the dentist now. You know what I mean? Like where there's a buy or pay and there's all this weird stuff where you don't know how much you just go in there blind.
Yeah.
Could be $10,000. You come out. I mean, I'm exaggerating. They would ask you before they did something that's 10 grand, but I've had hundreds of dollars of unexpected bills going to the dentist.
Yeah.
but I've gone to the Canadian, emergencies without any ID and just gone in and got treatment. The last time I went, I got a CT scan, and it happened within, an 8-hour time frame, and my bill for that is $0. So
awesome.
What is like this? The stereotype is that there's a real aversion to going to the hospital because you're going to get tens of thousands of dollars in debt.
Yeah, and obviously, the Canadian healthcare system is a very different system than the U.S. system, and I mean it's damn near night and day. I'm incredibly fortunate that my wife, her job affords our insurance.
Perfect.
And it's really good insurance.
Excellent.
And so I have had some out-of-pocket stuff. And to be honest with you, at this point, for the amount, I checked it in February as I was about 90 days into remission at this point, and I kind of just went on to the insurance portal just to see how much has been paid out.
Yeah.
I was at 1.6 at this point.
$1.6 million has been paid out through this insurance thing.
That was everything that they had been able to process before the transplant.
Right.
Or right up to about the transplant. So,
oh my God.
So I'm probably closer to 2.
Sure. So now if you didn't have this insurance, your life would look completely different, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm just always mind boggled by the States. Feels like sometimes like you're flying, you're performing without a safety net.
It's very, it's hard because and especially as someone that has now been through cancer twice, and I've had insurance for both times, and I was so fortunate that I did.
Yeah.
But to see, like, there's a lot of issues that need to get reformed within the medical system within the United States. There's no doubt about it. And it's very obvious every single day that I look at insurance. I mean, just the collusion that goes on between the medical facilities, big pharma, insurance, politics, you name it. I mean, it's basically rigged to really screw the American person,
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, and even, with how difficult everything is with politics right now, and just how sensitive everyone is, like, this is a real big problem within the States.
Yeah. Right. Well, I'm glad that you were able to navigate your way through the medical system and get treatment.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
I mean, stem cell treatment, I remember stem cell being kind of an election issue or like a hot button issue where people are like, but from what I understand, the leaps and bounds in stem cells in the last, let's say, decade, they're able to, like you said, harvest them from yourself or from a donor, like your brother or even just somebody that's just a good match, right?
Right.
Sometimes,
and the big confusion and I want to make sure that this is clear for everyone listening is the big issue with when this was a big hot topic button or big topic button within, American politics and stuff was the essentially the fetus stem cells. Right. And that nothing is going on with that, right? Like what I went through has nothing to do with fetal stem cell tissue and everything. This was all generated. The first one was all generated by my own body with specific drugs like Neupogen, which is it's a drug that helps your body produce more stem cells.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
And my brother took it. I actually took it even through my course because it also helps boost your immune system as you're going through this. Yeah, it's and so I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows this. What I did had nothing to do with fetal tissue.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. One of the things I'm just realizing too is 2019's fucking COVID hits. Being in the hospital system during COVID, that must have just been insane.
It was, I mean, it's still insane, but during my time, because I spent essentially from September through damn near close to Christmas in the hospital. I mean, I was in and out, and then I was in for a while, and then I was out. And it gets, the story's a little bit more involved, obviously.
Absolutely.
But there was a period, you know, my wife was down there with me too, because she was able to take a bunch of time off of work because of saved up, you know, PTO and everything else.
Yeah.
So, but there was about a 2.5-3 week period where she couldn't come visit me in the hospital because one of the family members of another person going through this transplant actually brought COVID into the transplant ward. And we are like, within the entire hospital, stem cell transplant patients are some of the absolute most susceptible, because the process involves essentially nuking your immune system.
Yeah.
Like to having no immune system.
Yes.
And then they introduce these new stem cells into you. And then it just takes time for them to make their way back into your bone marrow and to start producing all the key blood parts that you need to live and have a normal immune system.
Oof.
Yeah. So it was absolutely wild. And then, yeah.
Glad you're here, dude. Like, glad you're here.
It was, yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. There was a time where I had just gotten out from transplant. So this is after transplant. And because of all the treatment that I had to do to get into remission in order to do the transplant, my body's inflammation markers were fucking off the chart. This one specific one called your ferritin levels should be below 300. Mine was around 23,000.
Oh my God.
Which was causing me to have these fevering episodes that were just absurd.
Your body's trying to just eliminate this stuff.
6 days, every about 4 hours, I was just through this roller coaster.
Wow.
And the highest I temped out was at 108. Well, it was 42.2 Celsius, which is 107.98. So I just round up.
Yeah, that's just nasty.
I mean, my whole body peeled. It was fucking the craziest thing.
You were cooking from the inside.
Yep.
That's just unfriggin' believable. What a crazy thing to go through.
So this experience, you know, obviously the first time I went through this, when you go through an experience like this, the first time, the thing that you really think about is, you don't want anyone to ever have to go through anything like this. You don't want them to have to understand what chemotherapy feels like, what it feels like to be sick from radiation, to, you know, having the bone like growing pains essentially on steroids from some of these Neupogen shots and some of these drugs that you're taking. And it's hard, you know, it's really hard. The loss of hair. I mean, I was fucking completely hairless.
Wow.
In some ways it's kind of nice, but it's weird because it's just not normal. You know, you're putting your body through so much stuff, and
you're already stressed too. Like the stress of not knowing what's happening, then the stress of knowing what's happening, and then the timing and all the things. Yeah. I mean, I've seen a few people go through similar things to what you're, you know, discussing, and some people, it wipes them right out. Some guys are doing radiation and chemo and come to work with, you know, colostomy bags, and it is more and more prevalent now than ever before. But like, obviously this has inspired you to start the nonprofit. Right.
And that's what I wanted to come back to was, so I went through the first time I went through this whole experience, you know, in 2009, 2010. And then I had a close friend, Dave Tuck, who was an amazing skateboarder, snowboarder. He was involved with solid snowboards back in the day as well. So through that whole side of snowboarding, that was a really cool scene.
Yeah,
as
solid
well.
was sick.
And Dave and I, we talked a lot, even before my treatment and everything, and whatever. I mean, we didn't talk a lot, but we stayed semi-close. And then when he was diagnosed with stage 3 pancreatic cancer, and that's no bueno.
Yeah.
He fought like a motherfucker too. I'm just so proud of him for his effort, and so he was part of the start of Strappin' for Life, along with another gentleman, Mike Daniel, he lives in Tahoe now and is really involved with POW and whatever. But, and we started this nonprofit. And since I was after my experience, I had already started doing a lot of the paperwork and really researching, what does it take to start a nonprofit, to actually go through the entire process to get they call it your 501c3. And that's just how the IRS, kind of puts it into their system.
Yeah. Vans asked because Vans, I forgot that happened. Vans matched the listener contributions.
Awesome.
But they couldn't the second time because they didn't have the 501. They're working on it. It's what nonprofits do, right?
Yeah.
But once you get the 501, you're like the legitimate thing. You can start getting this. Yeah. You can start getting the money from the guys that want to donate to stuff 100%. To get that write off, to get their taxes down.
Yeah.
People don't, or maybe they do. I didn't realize that, the tax incentives, it's one of the most, right off the top of the taxes you're going to have to pay.
Yep.
is like dollar for dollar the donations that you give to with charitable causes.
Yep.
We talked about the healthcare system being in shambles. The other side of government is there are great programs like this that incentivize giving money to good causes.
Yeah, and this is a great way for people, especially since we are recording this pre Christmas and the first of the year. So to donate now means that you can still write that off for your 2021 taxes.
Cool.
Which is really rad,
So where do people go to donate?
They can just go to strappinforlife.org.
Yeah.
.org. Got to remember that.
Yeah.
And there's the donate button on there, and you can go right to it and put in as many zeros as you want, man. I really would appreciate it.
Yeah, put another number first, though, please.
Well, and so here's the thing with it, though, is since Dave passed away and Mike's working on other stuff, it's kind of me, and then I've a couple board members that we kind of do. But because I went through cancer again, lymphoma again, I kind of talking about the stresses and stuff like that come along with that. There's stresses that come along with Strappin' for Life as well. And not necessarily in a bad way, but just some things had to give. So I kind of put Strappin' for Life into hibernation for a little bit.
Yeah.
And just, made sure that, there's obviously enough money to keep a website going and to keep the machine greased and keep it going. And so kind of with what we're doing with Do Tours are kind of coming back, not necessarily trying to rebrand anything, but just trying to put everything together and trying to make it a fun event and just let everyone know that we're back and we're going to make a difference again.
Nice, man. So let's go back to the beginning.
Okay.
Where are you living when you first see snowboarding, and at what kind of, are you a skater or are you a skier that notices it? What kind of background and what age are we talking about?
So I was really fortunate. I grew up here in Breckenridge.
Nice.
So born and raised here.
Wow.
My family had been here since mid 60s, I think, but it gets kind of fun because my grandfather actually went to grade school here in Breckenridge in the 20s.
Wow.
And so my family history runs pretty deep here in Breckenridge, which is pretty cool. My brother Chris, so I have one brother, he got me into snowboarding, and right around 10 years old is when the first time I got on a board. And, just a little bit here and there through middle school and whatever. and it really kind of took off for me in ninth grade. And at that point, it just kind of, I went to nationals in 91.
Rad.
I mean, so basically from about 86 through was kind of my first experience on a board. And, you know, I kind of got really into it through like 88 and 89, 90.
Yeah.
So that period of time here in Breckenridge was really cool.
Oh yeah.
It was bringing people in from, I mean, all over the place. So the World Cups were going on here, the Swatch World Cups, and that was awesome. I remember my brother and I, when the half pipe was over by Beaver Run at the bottom of the freestyle aerial jump, which is on Peak 9.
Yeah. And
going over and watching the event going on. I mean, Craig Kelly and Burt Lamar and Dowd, Chris Pappas, I think, was there. You know, I'm young at this point. So,
yeah.
You know, to really remember all the people that were there is kind of mind melting in a way, you know, but I like everyone that you could think of was there.
It was the big event of the year. Like, I mean, it reached me in Sudbury, Ontario to see that, you know, the year after the Swatch, I think it was the TDK ones, and just, you know, Palmer and Craig and Terry and Duck Boy and Jacoby and that. I mean, what an era of snowboarding. Yeah.
And, you know, and within a year or so, they ended up moving it up the hill on Peak 9. And that's where, you know, I met Terry when he was 15.
Wow.
And he came out here for the first time. And I remember because I was kind of snowboarding for our local shop, Island Water Sports. And Island Water Sports had kind of the whole Burton team there at the time. And it was, you know, Duck Boy, Jacoby, Craig, and I want to say maybe Nicole Angerath was there.
That makes sense.
And then Terry was also there, and that's where I met Terry for the first time, which was, I mean, he was 15, I'm like 11, 12.
Oh, wow.
There, so
and he's not much of an English talker at that point. Hey?
No, he was real quiet, you know. I was real quiet as well, but we were just like, this is crazy, you know. But it was such a unique time at that point, and you know, and so my brother introduced it to me, and snowboarding was, you know, growing up here, you know, having snow on the ground for 7 months out of the year. Yeah. My brother was the skateboarder. So my brother kind of went in that direction, and I stayed with snowboarding. And so it was our kind of way of enjoying sideways sports in the wintertime, because when you have that much snow on the ground, there's just no skateboarding. I mean, we didn't have a skate park, but we did, my brother and I, and then another kid, Mikey Merrick, who we went to school with, who also rode for Wild Duck Snowboards back in the day. I remember
WD.
Yeah. He actually had a model with them.
Who was it?
Mikey Merrick.
Mikey Merrick. Mm-hmm. You know what? I don't know how much exposure I've had to Wild Duck. Yeah. They had like a couple of years where they really did like lunch trays, you know, like the really low quick kicks. Right. And, but I don't know much about the company. It must have been from Europe somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't either. Yeah. Because when I was, I don't mean to jump around all over the place.
No, it's fine, man.
But Mikey went to Summit High as well, and he was a couple years older than I was. And so, but his family and my family, we had skate ramps in our yards.
Oh, sick.
And we ended up having at one time, I think, 3 different ramps. Had a spine ramp, had this little 5-foot one that was our real first ramp, that my dad helped build in actually a shop that's just right below us here, from where we're at.
Oh, sick.
And then my father was full excavation contractor up here. He did a lot of building this town. Yeah. And so he had all the equipment to lift and move and everything.
Yeah, flatten it out.
And we ended up moving that ramp and putting it at the top of our driveway at home. And then we had that. And that's where I learned to drop in. That's where...
Being the ramp guy is like... you can be the center of a mini scene, or if it's early enough, you are the scene. Like get the guys are at your place,
and we were the scene. And the second ramp we had was the 7-foot that Island Water Sports made, and it kind of ended up going to a kid I went to school with, Randy Gill. And it was at his house. And then we moved it to our house so we could always skate it, whatever. Yeah. But that ramp was at demos for Island Water Sports back in the day. People like Tom Knox and Kelly Rosecrans were there skating during these demos. Frankie Hill, Bucky Lassick when they were little.
Damn.
So, I mean, we had a really interesting group of people that had skated these ramps.
Yes.
Right?
The skate scene in Boulder...
It was amazing.
I was just like completely unaware that this was like another hub.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, and I don't know if he said it on mic yesterday, it's because Kryptonics was here. So Kryptonics starts with mining equipment, develops these like mine cart wheels, and those turn out to be epic for skateboarding because, I mean, everybody's on clay wheels, right?
Yeah,
I don't know if Kryptonics invented urethane, but they definitely perfected it.
Yeah, they did a really good job. I mean, Powell's right up there too. George Powell. He still tinkers with all that shit. But yeah. And so we had skate ramps, and then we ended up when my great grandmother passed away, she left us about $900, I think, and we ended up building a 4-foot spine ramp in our yard with that money. Nice. So thank you, great grandma. That was. But you know what was cool about during this time is we had this built, and we ended up there were so many people that we ended up meeting through this. Whether it was, I met Gooch for the first time skating our ramp, and holy shit, Bob Blair, and there's a character right there. Holy shit.
I've talked to him. I have a Bob Blair episode that's way archived.
Awesome.
It was so early in the show, I didn't know who I was talking to.
Yeah.
And I didn't really have a foundation. And so we just kind of went all over the place.
Yeah.
But Bob Blair, Mikey LeBlanc said, you got to talk to Bob Blair.
Yeah.
Got me his info.
He's old Cedar Crest boy too. So, he has so much depth when it comes to not only snowboarding, but skating as well. And he's so old and fucking crotchety and just, oh dude, I love Bob. He's fucking great. That's but right. So having all these ramps was great because we ended up getting to meet everyone, and it also helped perfect our skills as 100%. Well. So, a funny story about Bob Blair is we would uncover the ramp occasionally during the winter so we could skate it. Like if we knew we were going to have some time,
a window of weather and stuff. Yeah.
And sometimes we would make that happen right around, the World Cup time. Right. So, we'd have people coming over it was killer. And so Bob Blair was being just Bob Blair and fucking snaking people and just being a fucking ass. And my brother was like, fuck you. And so he started snaking Bob. Bob got super fucking pissed and threw my brother off the ramp.
What?
And my brother was like, get the fuck off my ramp, motherfucker. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. So it was kind of a funny deal. Man. And then Bob realized, oh, fuck, I fucked up.
Yeah. That's crazy, man. So when you go to nationals, were you already sponsored, or was that just on a board that you had bought kind of thing?
So both. So a gentleman named Don Sather created what is called Team Summit. And that's kind of the high school. It turned into the high school snowboard team.
Yep.
And it was kind of an independent thing of the high school, whatever. But there was, a solid maybe 20 of us all together.
Cool.
And we would just compete, and not compete, but we competed. We competed a lot. We did the Rocky Mountain series. We did just all of our USASA events and all over the state. My mom fucking loved driving us all over the place. It was pretty cool. My dad too, actually.
Rad.
And we ended up, so that was part of it. And then Don Sather was instrumental in kind of getting Morrow as kind of the team sponsor.
That's so awesome.
And so that's how my original involvement with Morrow happened.
That's incredible. That's early on to have a school program.
Yeah, this was during like the free pro. So this was like maybe Yeah, 91.
That's so
90,
early.
91, somewhere in there.
But that's the difference of being in Sudbury, Ontario and Breckenridge, Colorado.
Yeah.
Like the scene really does break out from here. There are Breck years where, I mean, all the magazine coverage is from here because it's from the Worlds.
Everyone was here. And
and everybody was here.
And the funny thing about that is like for years, and it still happens to this day, is kids will graduate high school. Summit County is like the first place, on the way west.
Yeah.
Honestly,
that's it.
And then and so they get in that, and then they hear about Breckenridge, they hear about Copper and Keystone.
Yeah.
But this was also in the days where Keystone didn't allow snowboarding. It was still
boo.
Yeah, bastards. Well, it's all good now. But,
yeah, totally.
But yeah, there was that element of time as well, during that. And
so how do you do it? Did you win nationals? Is that what you said?
So I had just turned 15, and this is 91, and nationals was in Mount Hood, Oregon, and we ended up driving. The team drove out there. It was myself and Randy and Jay Dawkin, Rocket Reeves.
Wow.
Liesl Stokestead, who was married to Ninja. There was a fucking grip of us, and we ended up going out there. My dad actually drove out. We took Don Saylor's van. He had like a travel van. The motor ended up blowing when we got to Hood River. So we ended up, my dad, fucking God rest his soul, ended up taking care of kind of the engine because of his knowledge and expertise in excavation and engine, just dealing with fucking so much shit because in the world of excavation, when shit breaks and goes wrong, it goes wrong bad.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
you learn to really figure things out. And my dad got a new engine sorted out. We got it in there, and yeah, he and during this trip, he was able to get a new engine put in the van and make it up in time to watch me do my runs in the half pipe. Wow. And
that's rad.
That trip, I won half pipe, I won slalom, I took 6 in GS, and it was enough to win the overall.
Of course it was.
In my age group now.
Yeah.
Make that clear. But that kind of led to sponsorships at Morrow.
Hell yeah, of course. So you're already on Morrow, which is great for them.
Right.
And did other people approach you? I mean, at 15 years old in 91 and winning nationals, you're going to have a list of people.
Things started kind of moving.
Yeah.
During that trip, Don Saylor introduced me to Brad Stewart.
Yeah.
He was really involved with Morrow at the time.
Yeah.
And, he was also the founder, one of the founders and creators of Bonfire as well. And so, yeah, that one thing kind of led to another. But during this time, I obviously, 91, I'm a freshman in high school. I win nationals. So I'm in, it's kind of wild,
Yeah.
And then, and things just kind of started rolling. And that's, during that period of time, it was, starting to shoot photos, still competing, just kind of all over. I was kind of all over the board. During that time, I met Jeff Curtis, which is who I started doing some shoots with locally. And he was also kind of newer in the photography world of snowboarding at that time.
Yeah, he was the next gen, right? Like, 'cause there's Bud Fawcett and Guy Motil and John Foster. Those are the core guys in the beginning. But then you start to get your Danos, and you start to get your Joe Curtises, and the old. Yeah, it's just blowing up is what's happening.
Yeah,
right,
100%. And then, Morrow, ended up doing a lot of trips with Morrow.
Did you ever do a trip with Tucker Franzen? I always used to. I'm like, you knew that you guys weren't related. Your last names are different.
Yeah,
but Tucker Franzen and Todd Franzen are on the same team. It's crazy.
The irony of it's pretty hilarious. But they, Yeah, and they actually did an ad for both of us to kind of make sure that it was separated, and it was kind of whatever, and there was this weird heart-shaped 2-page thing. It was kind of silly. I'll have to show you.
Yeah, please.
Tucker. No, yes, we did ride together, but it was mostly at Hood.
Yeah.
We never really did any traveling together per se, because we're on the same team. We're on, it was just kind of a weird thing, but no, mad respect for Tucker, man. He's gone through a lot of crazy shit with injuries and motocross and stuff. So he's seems to be doing well. Yeah.
I talked to him last year on the show over the phone. He just seems like one of those guys that internalized snowboarding.
Yeah.
Right. Like that. He did really well at nationals as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Yeah.
And, he might've been state champ like maybe a year or two earlier than that.
Yeah.
In California, which is huge, right? Against Roach and the real deal guys. So, but it sounded like after he was done riding for money, he was like, he worked at Morrow and was just set his life up. So Morrow made him the money but he was snowboarding first.
Yeah.
And then going to work.
And that's what was so cool about that era is like, we were in such an early stage of a new industry that was just blowing up. And, I was, I don't want to say late in the game, but because I was able to take advantage of part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it wasn't at the same, just because of my age, I was much younger than Tucker and Roach and, Farmer
Noah
and
Brandon, Todd Richards. These are and Alex Warburton's on that team. The Morrow team was off the hook, dude. Jana Mayan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Matty Goodwill,
of course.
Talk about.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So Brad Stewart had left Sims and he took some of the hot up and comers with him, right? Because Sims was, I don't know whether it was imploding or just tightening up or they'd been at the top for a long time at that point. Mm-hmm. And now Burton's kind of coming in, starting to kick their ass a little bit in the competitions. But people are slow to forget that Sims is Sims. Right. Like there was a time where Sims was just it was Sims at the point where Burton is, now or for the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And everybody else is just chasing these designs that Tom is actually making. I went to the overflow for the Vail Museum with Trent Bush yesterday.
Awesome.
And I saw, unfinished prototypes of Sims boards.
Yeah.
And, Craig Kelly's Mystery Air. Oh, my God.
This board actually was in the museum.
Oh, no way.
As I lent it to them to use for because it's Mystery Air, and it actually got taken out so that Craig's Mystery Air could go in.
That's incredible.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Craig's brother donated some boards. Not donated. I think he's lent them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's on a borrow kind of deal. But
which makes it super rad.
And it's funny, my Team Summit Twist. So we were involved with Twist as well. Now this is as the team was, and my
sick.
My Team Summit jacket from Twist is actually in the museum.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
dude.
So that's kind of
so
fun.
Sick. So you're set up in high school. You got Morrow, Twist. Do you have a boot sponsor?
No, but I was kind of between kind of running Burton boots, and then I ended up getting sponsored by Airwalk.
Yeah.
And was pretty involved with that. And Tim Schwartz there was amazing.
Rad. Yeah.
Which was cool. And I rode Airwalks for a good majority of my professional career.
Sick. So do you focus on competitions because that's how you got into it, or do you make a move to kind of shooting video parts and getting crewed up with people?
Yeah, there was a little bit of all the above. I mean, when you're young like that, you can do a lot of all the different aspects of it. And it was on such a smaller scale than it is today. Yeah. I was competing, I was still doing a lot of amateur events because I really wasn't getting paid anything to do it.
Right.
Some travel expenses were getting paid, which was
That's
cool.
dope.
I was getting all the flow I could use.
Yep.
Which was, for an 18-year-old, 17, 18-year-old kid, you're like, this is great.
Next year's gear. Yeah.
Actually, from about 15 from nationals until end of high school, which it was, I graduated high school half year early. I worked my fucking ass off along with, my brother, my, Randy, and just some of our Team Summit people. We worked our asses off so that we could get out of school early.
Rad.
And I mean, just graduate early.
Yeah.
I graduated half a year early. And from then, I went to the first or second Junior Worlds.
Sick.
In Slovenia. And so that was kind of my first.
Was that a chaos one? Was that when like a big party and a bunch of?
It was kind of a weird deal. So Slovenia. So we were at this place called Rogla, Slovenia, and there's actually some. I might get this a little bit wrong. So
sure.
For those of you out there, we just lost Grillo, snowboarder. Yes. And I'm not 100% sure, but I think he was from that area of Slovenia.
Oh, damn. Cool.
I think, and please don't hold me to it.
Yeah.
And so during, this is early 95 maybe.
Yep.
Went to Rogla, Slovenia, and Noah Brandon was our coach.
Sick.
And there was a cool grip of us. People from Tahoe, people from the East, Montana. I mean, it was a well-rounded group of riders for this. And,
cool.
And I was kind of the favorite to win pipe, and I was feeling good too. And my first hit, get off, I got a little squirrely. I fell, and I got stuck with my nose, like vertical. My nose got stuck in the bottom of the pipe, and it was like, I couldn't move, and I'm sitting there like, I don't know what to do here. And it was a combination of two runs. My second run was, I think, the highest scoring run through the whole thing, but I eventually just was dead last because of it.
Because yeah.
But it was kind of funny because so Justin Hoisnick, Adam Merriman, and there's someone else went to Rogla like a week or two before us for a story and a trip, and it snowed. It was kind of meager there, and then between that time of them leaving and us getting there, it snowed like 8.5, 9 feet or something.
No way.
Absurd.
Right.
All the cars were still buried. There's so much snow on the tree. It was just amazing. And I ended up, we were there for a week, so we had plenty of time to go ride and do stuff and check it out. And we actually had to hand build the half pipe too, just to make it all work. So that was kind of a funny thing. But I would go off, and I found this little area that was all nice and steep, and it was all powdery, and no one was doing it. And I was just doing laps on that. And then everyone was like, where have you been? And I was like, I've been riding powder.
Yeah. Sick. So, did Justin stay for that, or was
no, they were gone.
They were gone by that point.
Yeah.
But you've obviously shot photos and film with Justin over the years.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story how he evolved from, working at Twist with those guys, being a partner in that, making the team video. Yeah. And then the team videos become, bigger and bigger. And then he just goes out on his own. And he's one guy who's still doing it now. Yeah. There's nobody else. I mean, Mac Dog's doing Real Snow and a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Things are, we're kind of entering a whole new age of, film and photography and everything else going on. So, I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit out of what is going on these days.
Sure.
I know
me
that
too, even.
I know Justin is busy with a series of kind of like an interview series going on. That's,
oh yeah, those are dope. Microdoses.
Right. Yeah. And I think those are going quite well. Shane Charlebras, part of that whole deal as well, which seems
awesome. Like just a solid character.
He's good. He's good people, man. He really is.
Yeah, I heard his bomb hole episode, and I was like, I like this guy.
Awesome.
He seems motivated.
He still loves doing what he does, which is, really at the end of the day, that's, doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah. So this is kind of cool because you're a competition kid, but you're living where the jib scene explodes from.
Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, competition was part of it, but I mean, I was involved with a lot of the jibs, man. There was serious rails around here.
Yeah.
Serious
rails.
Yeah,
big time. Right.
And, between rails, logs,
stumps,
the stump line over at Copper Mountain. I mean, you can ask Dale, Rayberg, Rowan Rogers, Nate Cole, fucking Blattner, Russell, fucking, they all fucking get it. They know. I mean, that was legit stuff going on over there. It was, it's just such an interesting time of snowboarding.
Yeah. Because it wasn't just the riding, it was the clothing, it was the attitude, it was the desire to, and that's what Anthem put on the map for me, like to infuse some culture in there that's different than, somebody who's getting to shoot perfect powder turns because they're in a helicopter.
Yeah, Anthem, and I was fortunate to be in Anthem, and Anthem was, that kind of helped really solidify a lot of the stuff that I was doing at the time too,
Rad.
I have to also give credit to my brother, because my brother was such an amazing, my brother did end up skating pro. He lived in LA and San Francisco for a good chunk of his life, and skated for World Industries. He ended up having a pro model with Neighborhood.
Damn.
And so when it comes to skating, my brother was more underground, but he's fucking so good.
Yeah. Yeah. That's epic.
So I credit him. For kind of helping show me the way, really.
Yeah. Most of the champions, most of the guys that win major things are brothers in a competitive brotherhood.
Yeah.
And usually the younger brother usually has a leg up because he's keeping up with an older brother who's pushing him.
Right.
Terry is a younger brother.
Yeah. My brother was younger, and and his snowboarding, it's so funny because like Rowan, Nate got him, they tried to get him on Joyride to ride for them. Yeah. Right. Joyride sent him a board, sent him a contract. My brother just saw the contract. Basically, it was like, whatever this is. He kept the board. Ended up riding the hell out of the board, and then we ended up like focusing it into like 30 small pieces or something like that.
Was it a flower pot board?
It was.
Yeah, those things you could break.
But it was the small one. It was like 149 or whatever it was.
Those were dope, man. Those boards were groundbreaking. Joyride's one of those companies that
he could tell the story a lot better than I could.
Yeah, they would have definitely been a force to be reckoned with in snowboarding if kind of made a couple of different decisions, I think. But it's hard. It's not, I recently interviewed Donna from Burton, and the big thing that I came out of it with is that Donna's not Burton. It requires hundreds of people to be Burton.
The essence was really Jake.
Yeah.
Jake was the essence of Burton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And with his passing from cancer, unfortunately, it's that's a tough one for the industry, and it's very obvious in its effect, especially going on right now.
Yeah.
With the US Open not doing, or Burton not doing the US Open, and
they're putting it on hiatus. So I think, as opposed to kiboshing, which sounds horrible, right? Because JG being gone, that's a big red flag for me.
Uh-huh.
And Terrier being off the team was the reason that I flew over to speak to Don in the first place.
Sure.
Was that I was like, hey, hold on, what the hell's going on here?
Right.
But like I said, when I got there, I sort of fell in love with this company that's like, it's not Donna. And I don't think that Donna, is making these decisions with like just sitting in a room going, all right, great. Now Jake's gone. We're going to really, stir things up around here. I don't get the feeling that that's what's going on.
Well, Burton has become a lifestyle brand.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that is their focus.
They tried it before, and it was a real slap to when they bought Channel Island, and when they were trying to do skateboards and what Gravis shoes. Remember the Gravis shoes? Yeah. It's like, but there is something about big business that is something I don't have any dealings with. I don't know about, the city of Burlington giving them the building
right
for $1 a year. Right. I don't know if she said that on mic. I'm sure she did actually. And that's like, what? You know what I mean? Like, what?
But that also goes to, the culture of what snowboarding and Burton really kind of took that, to the whole thing. And it's also such a East Coast element.
I think Burton always struggled with the culture thing.
Yeah.
I think they always struggled. They never had a team like the Joyride team.
Well,
where there was a bunch of influencers that were like just, raw snowboarding guys. They always had, and I mean, I look at Solars and Rents, and they've always had people that are epically cool. They've just never been the guys that are, I'm thinking like Tony Hawk versus Christian Hosoi. It's like Christian Hosoi to me is like badass and is not going to be told what to do. Tony, I mean, he might not be told what to do either, but he's not as badass.
Tony, I mean, there's no denying that Tony's ability is, fucking amazing.
Probably superior to Hosoi in now, like 50 at 50, the 50 tricks at 50. Like, okay, we're in a new era now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's no doubt, but Tony was able to take it to the commercial side of it, and really bring it more to the masses. And that's huge when it,
and maybe kind of cared about that, like had some sort of mentorship from Stacy or someone that was like, hey, look, man. And Tony is someone who's got his own foundation as well. So like, that's really respectable. Yeah. I heard his 9 Club and I was like, that dude, no, it wasn't 9 Club. It was Joe Rogan, which was weird because, but whatever.
But Tony's been on Joe Rogan, which is really cool. So, that kind of goes to show just how his reach in what he's been able to do, which is
absolutely, Yeah, he's a world phenomenon.
But he also is, an exceptional snowboarder as well.
Beyond.
Yeah. So it kind of goes to show just the cross pollination that can happen between the two, Yeah. And, I mean, my brother and me are a good example of that as well. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, we were talking kind of culture wise because I'm realizing, as much as there's a Burton narrative of, like Dear Rider, which have you seen it?
I have not yet.
Check it out. It's insane.
I will. And it's on my list for sure.
Yeah. And that is the narrative through the lens of Burton telling its story. And now there's 30 years of history of people like myself with absolutely no knowledge of what the hell's going on there.
Right.
Just talking shit, saying like, well, he was a ski racer and he wasn't into freestyle or he tried to sue everybody with the patent thing and then with the whole pattern thing. So there's this other narrative that's way less based in any kind of reality and more based in a kind of, raising your fist to the guy on the hill, right?
Right.
But at the end of the day, I don't think either one is wrong. I mean, why would Burton go out of their way to try and make themselves look bad? Obviously, they're going to see it the way they see it. And then for us, we were just young, naive kids who wanted the Joyride boards. Like, that is such a division. Like, if you were on a Terrier Sword and your friend was on a flower pot Joyride,
right?
Like, you were on different programs.
Well, even when I was riding Moro boards, seeing, like I always wanted to ride the K2 Dan Donnelly.
Yeah, it's a sick board.
And I always want to ride that board, and I always want to try a like Santa Cruz boards and
with the cutouts. Yeah,
and when Rankwick came out with the GNS board, like I was like, dude, it's like I want, but I was obligated to be on Moro stuff at that time, so I mean, it is what it was, and it's okay, Would I have liked that? Of course, but I also was still really enjoying what I was doing.
Yeah, and you probably get kicked off the team if you had said like, okay, fuck these Moro boards, I'm going to ride a joyride,
right?
And I'm going to cut it down. And I'm going to be drinking, and I'm going to have a 27-inch stance, and and on and on and on, right? Like you might have got booted from the team.
Well, I did cut my Moros down, and it was funny because when I ended up going out to Oregon one summer for it was a Moro, it was like a weird demo day thing, and they put us up, and it was to test out what Moro built, or what Robbie and Jeff Kruger built, was the lunch tray.
Yeah, I remember that.
And we ended up going out and testing these things out. And I remember bringing my board out. I had a revert at the time, and I'd cut the nose down. I spray painted the top sheet white.
Nice.
And it was just so fucking clean and so rad. And I don't think they were so stoked on that.
Jeffrey Kruger, do you know who that is?
I actually had a real long conversation with him on Thanksgiving Day.
I've
known Jeff for fucking ever.
So we're talking the same Jeffrey Kruger that was
the engineer
roommates with Craig.
Heli. Yep.
He finished the engineering degree at University of Washington. Yep. Craig ducked out the last year or last semester or something. Yep. And they were,
super tight.
Yeah, tight.
Oh, yeah.
They met at the beginning of, he's been on the show. I had Kruger on the show.
Kruger is such one of the most interesting characters that I've ever met.
The best.
Has one of the biggest hearts of people that I know.
Yeah.
And I appreciate his friendship. I got to know him when I left Moro to kind of start the Solomon program at the time.
Oh, shit. Really?
And that was, so that's, I actually had met him earlier. I met him at Moro.
Yeah.
Because he was doing all the engineering for that.
Yeah.
But when you're 18, 19 years old, and then throw in the amount of chemotherapy and other shit that I've been through medically wise.
Yeah.
My memory is
yeah.
It's weird. I remember there's a lot of things I remember, but there's, like meeting, I've met so many people through the years just trying to remember, And I have to be honest, like if we met, I'm so sorry that I don't remember.
Oh, hell no, man. I don't think we did. Or if we did, I don't remember either, because it would have been under, at a SIA thing, or, and then, where it's just craziness is going on all around, right?
And it's 100%. And you're just meeting, hundreds of people a day.
So many people.
Just like,
and I'm Robert Necking going, hey, there's fucking Damian Sanders. There's Jamie Lynn is over there.
And it's funny because that's Brad Stewart introduced me to Jamie Lynn for the first. I've only met Jamie once, and it was at SIA.
That's so rad.
So funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So how far do you make it with Moro before you jump ship to? Is it like a kind of jump ship type situation to? Because I was saying this to you. Must know Emmanuel Krebs.
We've met, but I mean,
I'm throwing names at you that you're like, yeah.
Well, I've met a lot over the years, especially early on. I met a number of all the Canadians, and I spent a little bit of time there. Actually, went up there with a friend from Colorado Springs who used to own a record store there and a skate park in the back of the record store, which was really cool.
Oh, that's so sick.
And Shad and I ended up driving up there, and then. We ended up skating all over Vancouver. Went to the Redmond skate park,
Richmond Skate Ranch.
Redmond, yes,
yeah. Where some of Animal Chin was there.
Lance Mountain, that's like build it. Yeah. Colin McKay's fucking deal,
exactly.
And so I got to skate all that stuff, which was really cool. And
man,
and skate downtown. I tried.
A new
I remember.
spot, yeah.
I remember trying to do that gap on the new spot. Like,
wow, man.
I went for it. I actually tried it twice, and I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, nah, I'm cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then we went up to Whistler, and we were only up there for like a couple hours because we couldn't find any place to stay.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
And so we ended up coming back down. But over time, I've spent other time up there. And
oh, that's rad. Yeah, Manuel Krebs. I kind of called out Solomon for being a bit late to the game, and he was like, "Well, it was a plan. They had a plan." And then I was like, the boards were kind of playing. He's like, that was also planned, and he's, and then he pointed out that, Jason Ford was instrumental in, Solomon bringing boards to the market that they felt were better than everything else at that time.
Well,
I remember them telling us they were better for sure.
Well, Brad asked me, cause how that whole thing kind of spurred was, Brad worked a deal out with Solomon to sell Bonfire to them, and that was their way in.
Nice.
And it originally was going to be Bonfire Snowboards. And through that, it was myself, Ford, Blattner, and J2.
Brad.
And that was the four of us to start the whole thing off. And and Kruger has all of our dimensions for our pro models, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
we were going to do that. But then you throw the Olympics into the mix and all this other shit, and it just, Bonfire just decided to not happen, and it only became Solomon, and it just was, a nightmare.
Yeah, was it a nightmare? We never got the boards. We demoed them, and because I worked for a shop, so they really were over the top with the like, get ready for this. Yeah, we're finally bringing you what you've wanted your whole life.
Yeah. And riding all the early boards they rode different than everything else out on the market. But I was also so used to riding Moros, which were old foam core boards, and they would just die over time, but whatever. And these just had a whole new way of being built, and the construction of them was different, and they rode different. They at the time it was like comparing, like a Volkswagen to a Ferrari.
I hear what you're saying. I mean, because I work for a shop, in Vancouver, we got to demo a lot of shit because people would do their demos at Whistler. Right. And then even the Rossi guys started to do yearly demos even at the local mountain so that everyone from the shop would get on them. I got to say, in my memory, and maybe because of the same revisionist thing I'm talking about with Burton, being that guy at the shop that's like, oh, fuck this ski company, man. They didn't even build, at least Rossi built snowboards back in the day in K2, and these guys took a gamble on it. And where Solomon, if you remember their skis from the early days of snowboarding, they were very distinct. Yeah, the image of them that I can think of is the Grosher and the Libtech Litigator. With where they put the Shalom on there. That era of Solomon skis, they were number one with the bullet. So, but I would say on record, I think that the Rossi boards rode as well as those Solomon boards because they had similar kind of engineering. Sure. But absolutely, having ridden Moro boards 100%. To come to a Solomon board from a Moro. Yeah. And the Moro boards did ride well. I rode that Todd Richards Dinosaur. That thing was sick, dude. Yeah. But the Solomon boards were more solid. Yeah. They would last longer. Yeah. They had better pop. There was nothing bad about them.
That era really ushered in kind of a whole new wave of technology into snowboarding. Yeah. And it really made that product, or just the products in general, just take such a jump in their quality all around, and their riding ability. They became lighter, just all around. They were just better, they were just better boards, whether they were Rossi or, I think right after my Solomon side of things was done, I was riding one of Jay Nelson's option boards. Yep. And that board rode great as well.
Hell yeah. Yeah, with the fly core, like they'd had the V core. Yeah, so it's a pretty cannibalistic industry, like
Yep.
it's not rocket science. If somebody who rides for your company tries out a board and goes, "Hey, this is better than what we're making,"
Right.
you cut it apart, you look at what's going on in there, and then you try and make something similar.
Yeah. And, and Kruger was hugely instrumental in that whole process, and just being able to get into their factory and see how their stuff was made, and then to be able to apply it to the product, to snowboarding products, was really, really kind of awesome. You know what I mean? And it was that was a pretty good jump, but that was a fun time. I remember Ford and myself and Blattner and Twos, we were spending so much time in Europe testing.
That would have been so fun, hey, to go over to Europe.
Yeah.
You're making a face like it wasn't the greatest thing in the world.
No, it was, don't get me wrong. Yeah. I spent a lot of time in Europe. I spent, even getting over there with Morrow and Airwalk, I spent a bunch of time over there with Richards, and it was more summertime stuff. I shouldn't say it was more, it was kind of equal.
Yeah.
The second trip I ever did, after my Rogla, Slovenia trip, was I went to Russia with Jay Nelson and Dave England.
Oh, awesome. The Jackass guy.
And Brad Stewart and fun. Justin Hoisnick and Bill Gallen from Fall Line Films.
Holy shit.
Then we had a KGB officer, an ex-KGB officer and a police officer as our guides. And we kind of...
that sounds awesome.
It was actually... it was actually filmed, a segment in Getting Some for Fall Line Films Getting Some.
Yeah.
And holy shit, that was, I was a pretty straight laced kid. I didn't really do a lot like, drinking. I was definitely not into drugs or anything like that. But that experience in Russia changed me just generally.
Rad.
We got ourselves into a really gnarly situation where it could have gone really bad with an avalanche. And that was really kind of what spurred Jay and myself to really start taking a huge interest in snow science and just spending time understanding that a lot better.
Getting the equipment, learning how to use it, all the
above. I mean, within the first week of me getting home from that trip, I got my first beacon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've heard
Peeps 457. I'm sure a lot of you guys used to have some of those, one of those out there. So
yeah, I've heard that the snowpack here is extremely dangerous. One of the most dangerous in the world.
Oh yeah, Colorado sucks. Don't come here ever. Snowboarding in Colorado is dangerous and it will kill you. No, but here's what you have to understand is Colorado, we're landlocked. We're in the middle of the country, right? So we don't get the moisture from, the maritime moisture coming in from the ocean. And then we also don't get enough snow in general, like in Utah, that gets the insulation factor happening. So Utah will always have a little bit better snowpack than Colorado. And then, obviously the Cascades and, Tahoe and everything all the way down to Mammoth, they'll just get more snow. Although Mammoth gets so much wind that becomes an issue as well. But that's a whole, whatever. But Colorado, we get the sun, we get the wind.
Yeah.
We get the fucking super cold. We'll have periods of time where it's, minus 20 degrees, and that's without wind chill, it's, but this is like northern Canada,
yeah, man, that's what I'm used to. I'm not used to. When I went back the first time, I was so soft because Vancouver is so temperate. It's never very cold and it's never very hot.
Yeah.
And I went back to Ontario, and I remember we have a long driveway, and I didn't want to wake my parents up by having the taxi go in. So I said, just let me out at the end of the driveway. And I'm walking for the first few steps. And by the time I got to the house, I was sprinting. I was like, oh my God. It freezes your shoes, your eyelashes stick together. It's a
miserable
different deal than, -5.
Right. And, to put extra layers on top of it, of everything, we are, as the crow flies, about 7 miles from the top of the Continental Divide, or from the Continental Divide.
Yeah.
And, and our elevation at the house where we're at right here is a little over 9,400 feet.
Yeah, man, I get all fucked up here. Like altitude is kicks my ass.
You were saying you were hiking with Chad, and I just started kind of chuckling. I was like, oh, that had to not gone so sweet.
You know what? It was super fun, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. But I could tell that he was not going his pace. Right?
Yeah.
He slowed down to my pace, which was sweet of him. I've been drinking water the entire time I was here.
Right.
Because on top of it being super high elevation, it's also a desert, and I'm from a rainforest. So I'm like just getting dried out altitude.
Yeah.
It's gnarly here, but it's the most unique place that I've ever been snowboarding.
Cool.
It is absolutely drop dead gorgeous in every direction.
This, Colorado, Summit County, and Breckenridge, in it, like where we're at here, is so unique. It has such a rich history, not necessarily just in action sports and snow sports in itself and skiing, but in its rich history when it comes to mining and just the age of the municipality and everything else that comes along with it.
There's like gold mines in the side of the highway. Like you just look up and you see those things that you've seen, stereotypical gold mine.
Yeah.
With the the wood outside the front, and it just looks like, holy shit, I wonder if there's still some gold in there. Like I could see it. You can feel that there was a gold rush in Idaho Springs. Like when I went through Idaho Springs, I was like, holy shit.
It's wild. Like, Colorado was, 1800s was just a whole different thing. Like Denver was there, and it was just more of like a before you go into the mountains type of, kind of town. It's kind of a funny little fact. There was a point where Leadville was almost the state capital.
Leadville.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Leadville sits, as a crow flies here, probably less than 20 miles away.
There's so many crazy names. Grizzly Gulch, tiny town. Yeah. Like as I'm going out, that Caribou Crossing, like everything is like what you'd see in a Western movie.
It's, Colorado is it definitely has that Western feel to it.
100%.
You know what I mean? And it has the history to prove it too.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it's kind of the epicenter, not just kind of, it is the epicenter of early snowboarding culture, because anyone who was a pro in that like kind of 86 through 90 had to either base himself here or come here on a regular basis to be a part of what was growing into what would become snowboarding.
So, because of the Mecca and everything here, people like Andy Hetzel and Zach Bingham and Adam Merriman, they all lived at the end in what we call the lighthouse at the end of Hoosier Pass. And it's like the house that sits there before the first set of switchbacks.
No way.
That's where they lived. And
Hoosier Pass is where I hiked with Chad.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. Sunny.
Yeah.
The snow sucked a little, but whatever. Oh, we're at an early season. Yeah, exactly. That's why we were there, was because there's no snow.
Yeah.
But, if I had to choose between groomers and hiking, I would hike with Chad Otterstrom over, probably a Powder Day. Just he's good company, and he's such a rad dude.
Chad's been not last year, but for the last few years, Chad and I have gone out on my birthday. We go hiking and go 2-3 years ago. We went up onto Baldy here. Went up for a night because it was a night kind of hike, whatever.
Yeah,
and it was full moon or real close to full moon, so we were just up there for a little while, which was really cool.
That's so sick.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got a lot to choose from here. That's what it feels like. It feels like if I was living here, I would have, I already have like 10 lines that I want to bag. Like just looking at going, okay, that looks like if you just hike up the ridgeline, that's perfect.
Yeah.
There's a place, it might be Keystone, is at the bottom of Loveland Pass. Is that right? There's a ski area as you're.
Well, there's A Basin. That sits kind of.
That's the other way of this pass. So there's a pass. I got on the pass in a weird way somehow, but the road up to A Basin, there's a ski resort in a parking lot there.
That's Keystone.
It is Keystone.
Yeah.
And as you turn to go to Loveland Pass, there's like 3 major Avi chutes right there.
Oh yeah.
I was going to hike up those. That was the first thing I saw. And I'm like, okay, the snow looks good. It's not sun affected. Yeah. It looks deep enough. I'm going to hike up. It's a very good angle.
Yeah.
It's probably 45 degrees or something. It's pretty steep. And when I went in and hiked at the bottom of the pass, the other side, right at A Basin, I was like, oh, this is deceiving. This snow is light. Like, I'm used to snow that is, if you have 6 inches, you can make it work.
It's thick. It's you know, and it's surfy. You know,
totally.
What I mean? When you get 6 inches here, I mean, it's like you can just blow it.
I saw that driving up here. It started to snow, and I get anxiety because I'm thinking, when it snows in BC, all you need is like a couple inches, and then people are flying off the road because it sticks right away.
It's that maritime snowpack that comes in. There's so much moisture, and when it mixes with the cold, it'll just it will. You know, here it's just a different beast. Is the only thing I
stuck my hand out the window, and I was like, it's cute. It's like dust.
Yeah.
It's not like,
and when you get a lot of it, like feet of it, it's just a different experience.
Yeah, it's got to be better than anything.
It's really cool.
Yeah. I rode some blower pow in Montana, and it takes some adjusting because in like I said, that coastal snowpack, 6 inches, you're not touching the bottom.
Yeah,
6 inches here, you're basically riding ice if there's ice underneath it.
Yeah, you know? but it's still weirdly surfy too. You know?
Yeah, you got to get to the perfect low angle stuff, and just then there's nothing better.
But therein lies the other issue. You know, another issue within Colorado snowpack is we don't get all the moisture, which is, you know, and it's totally understandable. But when you think about it in kind of the big macro picture of it, you know, it's really important for Colorado to get snow. And that's what everyone's talking about right now, is because we're not getting snow right now. What is that going to do to our snowpack? Mm-hmm. Because we're at the headwaters for both the rivers that flow to the east and flow to the west. Yeah. Jeremy Jones is really, obviously, and the Protect Our Winters guys are really taking an aggressive angle on, listen, no snow. We got mass unemployment in places like Colorado. Yeah. Like, we need to make this an economic issue. But it's not just winter sports. You got to think about all the summer sports that water affects, you know, the fishing industry, you know, rafting industries, and, you know, everything that comes along with that too. And, you know, that doesn't even include water rights that comes into play as well. And that's a big thing in you know, the Western United States, is especially starting in Colorado, you know. Really? That's big, because you got to think about all of the water that we get still needs to make its way, you know, west to irrigate and to, you know, feed people. Yeah, when I was flying in, I mean, I don't know anything. I'm a total, like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. Sure. But there was a couple of places where it looked like it was basins that would normally be filled with water, and there was like just a little lake left. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, as though it was a big dry lake bed. But I'm not saying I know that that's recent. That could be, it was a lake a million years ago. A friend, you probably know the name Bryce Knights. Of course I do. Yeah. You know, fucking legendary skate photographer. Yeah. You know, and skater in his own right too. Well, started as skateboarding, you know, and I think he was pro for Schmidt Stick back in the day. He was, yeah. But, you know, he keeps documenting kind of the lakes in California and how they're just dry. You know, there are old bridges and old train tunnels that are starting to show up, and just things that people haven't seen in decades, you know. Mm-hmm. But California is always in such weird drought all the time, you know, so it's... And there's so many people. Yeah. It's really scary when we're talking about this stuff. I know that it's a divisive topic for a lot of people. Like, I've talked to several people
that don't think that global warming's even a thing.
Sure.
That's
which
scary.
is funny because global warming's been happening before humans were around. So,
Sure.
Obviously humans have affected it even more.
If you look at the science, mainstream science, and it's going back like 60 years now. I just heard in a podcast that the Kennedy administration was like, we need to look into climate change, whenever that administration was. And they did a huge report on it. And they said it's time for action right now. And we're talking about
the 60s.
1960, 59 and 60, I think.
Yeah.
And here we are, and there's a debate about it now. It's so weird to me, but I do understand both sides of it from the point of view of people pointing out that we've been, media brainwashed. We absolutely have.
Yeah. No,
so that's not debatable either.
Main Street media. I mean, that's a whole nother tangent. We can avoid that. I think we'll just stick with snowboarding for now. But there's the things about, the sports that we love to do and what it involves when it comes to snow and water.
Yep. Big time. And we're at a threshold right now. We just had something called an atmospheric river in Vancouver.
Yep.
It washed out the bridges on Highway 1.
You guys got nuked.
Nuked. Yeah. Weather nuked.
Yeah.
And if it would have been snow, we would have been under like 30 feet of snow or something. Yeah. Like it was biblical rainfall. It was insane.
And I think like Alaska was getting snow during like part of that as well. And it's, at the end of the day, it comes down to personal responsibility. It comes down to doing the best that we can with what we know and what we can do. And, for me, that's, I live in an area that is super, it's gorgeous up here. We're seeing a huge influx of people in our town. And it's, as someone that grew up in this place, it's a tough one it's tough to take, just seeing the amount of growth that's happening.
Yeah. The lift lines everywhere have gone insane.
Yeah.
Like we're speaking this year, and Chad brought it up, and I didn't really realize it, but like it's happening where I'm at too. The phenomenon of people on split boards and skiers getting first tracks before the mountain even opens, right? Like, so there's no longer, it was hard enough before knowing that, getting first tracks at 10 in the morning because you slept in a little bit, or at noon has gone the way of the dodo. But then even getting in the line at 9, that doesn't happen, because at 9 o'clock when they open, there's a 20-minute line.
Right.
So you got to be there at 7. But then even being there at 7 and waiting those 2 hours to get in that line, well, that line becoming 2 hours long is incentive for people to go, hey, well, if we're here anyways, it only takes an hour to get to the top on our skis. Let's go do that.
Yeah. And then you throw in kind of what COVID and all the shutdowns really inspired and spurred was just people really taking a little bit more interest in their health and becoming more involved in that,
outdoors.
And as someone
get outdoors,
and as a 2-time cancer survivor, the importance of that is, and it's something that I've been talking about for, a decade now.
Yeah.
That, just your health is super important. And, just spending time outside, helps with the stress relief, which is huge for the rest of the body and dealing with inflammation. And then you throw exercise and that type of stress in, it compounds in every single other aspect of your life in mental health, So yeah, there is another part of this that is, I think, is a good thing as well.
Yeah.
With people hiking and obviously taking, going up and getting first tracks and stuff like that. I never even really thought of it like that. I just, hiking up the resort and stuff. It's just kind of early for us, it's early season, so there's no snow. It just, I've ridden once this year so far, and
I haven't been on a chairlift yet.
See, perfect.
Yeah. And I mean, last year by December, I probably had 20 days on a chairlift. That's an exaggeration. I had at least 10 days in November.
Awesome.
And then it was once the resorts were open, I went every day.
Yeah.
I'm doing quality over quantity this year.
I've been a huge fan of quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because I've had a number of some of the newer kids that live in the area ask me, "Have you been riding yet? You stoked to go ride?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't really give a shit right now."
Yeah, until it's good.
And, because maybe it's because I'm spoiled. I mean, I've 35 years on a board now.
Yeah.
And, I'm just particular on the stuff I like to ride. And, when it comes to riding a resort, there's a certain area on Breckenridge that I like to go, and that's cool. And
you want to blow it up? Where do you want to go?
No, I mean, everyone knows, you go to Peak 9.
Right. That's a spot.
Go to Peak 9 and only ride the Beaver Run lift.
There you go. You got it.
Hint. No, there's great riding on Peak 9. There's great riding on Peak 10. There's great riding on Peak 8 and Peak 7. And there's even stuff, and with the newest edition and the Breckenridge Resort, there's fun stuff on Peak 6 too. Obviously I try to avoid the crowds as much as I can.
Yeah.
And that usually involves going up early, and I kind of just go where I can get to quickest.
I hear you, man. Just get there early, get your runs, and get the hell out.
Well,
That's me too, man.
I had a couple days ago, I had dinner with Chad and a friend Joe. It was Joe's 45th birthday, which was pretty cool. And we were just talking about just the people that are coming into town, and we're just coming up with nicknames for them all. And we were, and Joe's a kid that grew up here in the county. He's a phenomenal golfer. And we just, we were just laughing. Breckenridge is known for its fucking the best greens on the planet,
Nice.
So we keep it that way.
Yeah. Excellent.
kind of fun little joke about it all. But I don't know, we love I love Breckenridge to death, but it's also been 45 years of me here. It's a long time.
Yeah, man. Did you live in France when you were working for Solomon at all?
No, I just was out there for months on end.
Yeah. So they'd put you up in a condo or whatever, and
we would just test boards and ride. We rode all sorts of different stuff.
You have your kids at that time? Like, was it like hard to be away from the family, or
there were no kids?
No kids at
the
point.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget. My daughter was born in '99. She's 22. So yeah. So this is mid '90s.
The decade before.
Yeah. It's incredible, huh? Yeah. It's nuts.
Yeah, my oldest is 24. Raina's 24, and Clean is 21.
Cool. Yeah. That's great age. You're going to get that empty nest you're talking about soon.
Empty nesting is a theory only. Okay.
Yep.
It
totally
doesn't really. I mean, it does eventually happen, but when parents say, "Oh, my youngest is turning 18. We're going to be empty nesters."
Good luck. Yeah, totally.
You are not.
Yeah, I don't have any. I don't want my kids to leave. I just don't. I'm happy with the way things are.
Yeah.
I get to ride all the time. The kids are adults. They take care of themselves. Yeah. Like it's the easiest my gig has been since forever. Like ever. And I'm speaking directly to Tyler Lepore. It gets easier, buddy. It gets so much easier.
Oh, yeah, Tyler.
Yeah, and you get your life back, and it's so much better than you remember even.
Our neighbor Jason next door, he has 3 kids, and they are, they're struggling right now because they're all young. They're all under 4. Mm-hmm. And so he has a lot of time. And so, they're trying to figure it out, and it's not easy. There's
this
they have
whole
and they have
thing,
3
yeah.
kids,
Yeah.
My brother has 3 kids. His oldest is 17,
Yeah.
which is great. And then there's a 9 and a 3-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a huge spread.
That's massive spread. He's set his life up to be, in permanent dad mode.
Yeah. And he's amazing at it too, which is good. But he gets a bigger picture of it. And it's just, you do what you can with, with the time, because, I don't know, my girls have been so important in my growth as a person, as a human.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know what I
man.
mean? And,
Totally.
And I'm about as happy as it gets with that.
Yeah, there's no way to prepare for what the journey is to being a parent, right?
Yeah, and no one's journey is the same.
No,
that's
true. Yeah, that's true.
You have no clue. Just this. I mean, I can think of a number of different random fucking things that fucking happen with the girls, and but that's as they get older, you can actually joke with them about these things.
Oh, hell yeah.
And so of course. It's, as they're adults now, it's fun because you can actually, I can go out and have a drink with them too.
It's nice to be connected in that way, that you can, because a lot of people have struggle with parenting, and, the kids can't wait to get out of the house, and you don't have a lot in common. Like my kids and I hang out on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Like, it's fun. They're great people. And
it's fun to be a positive influence in their lives as well.
100%.
You know what I mean? I mean,
100%.
You can, and as they grow, and as you watch them grow, you can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
The courses that they take, and
totally.
You can just, kind of give them a little nudge. Hey, you might want to check this out instead.
Yeah. Emmanuel Krebs was talking about, for his daughter, his most important wish is that she finds anything she's passionate about, like he was passionate about snowboarding. I think that sentiment is, like, that's crucial. Connecting your life with something that you love to do. Everybody says it. It's like, do what you love and you won't work a day in your life. But it's not that easy.
No. And we were so fortunate because we got to fall in love with sports that were, for us, they were a way to kind of stand out of the crowd.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
So we were, I
can't imagine starting snowboarding right now. Like, how lost you would be. Like, what do? Do you listen to this podcast and find out about Terry Kidwell and Keith Kimmel and all those guys and Dimitri and Sherman? Or do you instantly look at, whoever's going to beat Mark McMorris and start training and get a coach and buy an airbag? And
I'm trying to remember.
Like, what do you do?
I'm trying to remember the conversation I had about that recently, about like how, just really being able to enjoy something for what it is and not have the expectation of grandioso, just results and everything else that comes along with fame.
Yes. Like what basketball was for us, right? Like there was basketball nets everywhere, and you'd play 21 with your friend or something.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think like, oh, I'm going to, sorry, I said you wouldn't think, but I wouldn't think like, oh yeah, there's a career in this for me. Whereas when we were kids with snowboarding, there was this kind of excitement that the sport was growing in such exponential ways that you could actually make a living doing something within snowboarding, and it might pay off.
And during that time though, we were all just drawn to the sport because of it wasn't skiing. It wasn't anything that was mainstream. So, whether you realized it or not, we were involved in this new, it was a completely brand new sport that really attracted the crazier personalities, the fun personalities, the people that the adventurous people, you know, that didn't really fall into a specific mold.
And it came with all these externalities that were so rad, like road trips and destinations like Mount Hood, gatherings of people that might be, you know, I met my buddy Stevie Floyd. He was from New Hampshire, or no, he was from Amherst, Massachusetts. Like just random place in the middle of nowhere that we drove down to 17 hours in a car. And now you've got all those things. You've got a road trip. You've got friends. You've got friends that live somewhere you've never been before. And it's like this package deal where you speak the same language as all these people all around the world. And at the same time, every single one of us gets to feel like we're something special in this. Like, hey, this is special to me. I connected with this. All my friends are doing other things, and I'm connecting with this and meeting a whole new community of rad people.
But that's what was so cool about traveling as a snowboarder was you could go anywhere there was a shop and you could meet the local kids, and then they would show you around their hill, you know, and it's a similar thing to skateboarding in a sense that, you know, I've done both on both sides, you know, going to a skate shop and go like, hey, you know, we're just kind of passing through town. And, you know, I remember coming back from, I was in Indiana with Jay Nelson, and just his family and my family there's some interesting similarities and stuff, but we were coming back, and I'm trying to remember if we were in Wichita driving back or in I think it was Wichita, and stopped at this place, and we found that there was a skate park in Wichita, and we were like, yeah. And so we went and we found this place, and we went and just skated for a couple hours.
Yeah.
And we ended up meeting some people, and it was great, you know, but that's how it always was. I'm assuming it's kind of still the same.
Are you kidding?
You know?
It's still the same. I just did it the other day.
Awesome.
I come into Brack, I ask Otterstrom what's up. He's like, it's no snow, but if you want to go, we'll get up early in the morning, sleep on my couch.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, I don't know, Chad, man. He's a celebrity to me. And he's like, come on over, sleep on the couch.
Awesome. Yeah.
It was rad. It was just like, I think it's still there. The difference is I've become less adventurous and more into the safety thing. And I've got my little pockets of stuff I can do around Vancouver. But and COVID hit, and that kind of put a bit of a damper on traveling around the world. But I'm finding it again through the podcast that there's no difference now.
Awesome.
Like I'm in a house where there's a Burton mystery air. You know what I mean? Like that is just like shorthand for I like you. Like we're gonna get along.
Hey, you know.
Like that's a board that is.
But that was the thing about
has so much depth.
Being involved in a sport for so long is we end up meeting people with similar interests like this, you know.
Totally.
And we automatically have hours of things to talk about.
Totally.
You know 100%. What I mean? It's really cool. And, you know, and like when we started this, I mean, you didn't really know much about me. And
almost none, really.
Likewise.
Yeah,
the other
right,
way, you
right.
know? And,
totally.
But
here we are.
There's a common language going on here.
And it's like, awesome. I found out about your life and about your passion and about, like it's rad. It's the best thing ever. This is the part of snowboarding that we would normally do on a chairlift when we were kids. Right? Like I'd bump into you and then we'd ride up the lift.
And we'd just ride together for the day.
Yeah. And by the end of the day, it's like, how long are you here? Oh, I'm here for a week. All right. Let's
meet us here tomorrow too.
Yeah, exactly.
Or we're gonna
or meet us somewhere else because you're in town. That's a special occasion. Now we're gonna go check out something that takes a little more effort, but is like special to us. That's the road trip mentality and the community mentality that from that very first road trip, which was started because of a road trip. Like I went to Wendell's.
Yep.
met the guy at Windell's, and then it was like, we're gonna, the next summer, it's like, you cool with us coming down there? He's like, sure. Yeah. And his whole friends and our friends, like, we just became this giant group. And because we were there, they're like, let's do these things, let's climb up the water tower and smoke a joint on the top of the water tower, or whatever you've got when you're 16 years old to do, right?
That was the whole thing about, all the traveling we did. We just, it's a lot of memories and stuff like that,
Sounds like you got after it. Like snowboarding gave you some super good years.
Snowboarding was a very influential part of my life. I was a real quiet kid, real shy and just really reserved. But the one thing that I felt like was mine was snowboarding. Like, that's what I was good at. You know what I mean? And, that's just kind of the path it went for me. Like, I knew where my skills were at. That was killer. But like, communicating wise with other people was really, at an early age was a little bit difficult. And then winning nationals, that helped open a lot of shit up for me. Helped open my personality, helped open my ability to at least talk with people a little bit better. You know what I mean? And, and it's only gotten easier for me over time, and then spending time, whether it was, with all the product testing and stuff, or doing all the video processing work with 411, or.
Let's talk about that. How do you get into that? What's the connection there?
So it's, skateboarding.
Yeah.
Was the connection, really through my brother, Josh Friedberg, who was one of the founders of 411 back in the day, along with Chris Ortiz, skate photographer, fucking phenomenal guy. Still actually talk with him a fair amount. Steve Douglas, who was skateboarding distributor. And then I'm blanking on the gentleman from who started Element Skateboards. And then Paul Schmidt from Schmidt Stick.
Unreal.
And so so the five of them.
Paul Schmidt was in on 411 Video Mag.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's sick.
In fact, his factory in Costa Mesa, in the front of it was where 411 really had their original edit bays and everything else.
So cool. Yeah. Yeah, because skateboarding, snowboarding, you need a documentarian there. Yeah. That was always the way of it.
And so they had been, doing skateboarding and just going at it pretty hard there. And because of skateboarding and snowboarding, like Josh Freeberg moved from Topeka, Kansas out to Colorado and was really involved with skating at the time. And we were all, even though we were in the mountains, we were still spending a lot of time in Denver. My mom was involved with the kind of in charge of the Colorado Skateboard Association for a period of time. And
cool.
So she was putting on contests, and Josh was there, my brother, me. It's just, a lot of the Denver crew, Colorado Springs crew, obviously us up in Colorado. So it was all this whole thing. And we just got to know Josh over the years, and he was going to college in Golden. And then he ended up making his way out to California. He was also skating for New Deal at the time. My brother was skating for World.
Yeah. So
that was kind of it in a gist. And while his time in California, meeting all these guys and stuff like that, they got the idea to put together 411 Video Magazine, and that's kind of how that got going. And then after so much time, they wanted to start trying to document snowboarding as best they can. And Josh knew kind of my situation after Bonfire, Solomon, after the fallout of that. And I also got injured pretty bad too. I didn't break my hip, but I damn near did.
Yeah, like bursitis, and it's hard to get that to go away.
Yeah, didn't walk for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Didn't ride for 4 months.
That's gnarly. Yeah, I'm coming off of that.
Yeah.
I didn't break my hip. I jammed my leg, and but that's why I got that MRI or that CT scan or MRI. I got an MRI, which is even gnarlier to get for free. I'm saying because those are expensive.
Yeah.
But I didn't know what was wrong with my hip.
Yeah.
I thought I must have cracked it or something because of the pain I was in.
Yeah.
And it just was not going away. That's a nasty injury, man.
And mine was more like impact, and it wasn't like the leg got shoved up into my hip. It was more like impact on the side.
Oof.
And it was at a Vans Triple Crown border cross event. And I am not very good with border cross events. I'm fast as hell, but I'm sure it's not good on my body.
Yep.
So I ended up getting injured there, and then that was kind of the nail in the coffin. At that point, I was burned out. I was tired of a lot of that shit. So that was.
What year are we talking?
Oh man,
Triple Crowns were.
This was 97, 98.
Yeah, I would have guessed Triple Crowns.
No, this was
96 through.
This was the year
2000 something.
Year after Olympic trials, so 98.
98, yeah. And you're just like, I'm calling it in. On the athlete side, I'm going to do some.
I was just burned. I was snowboarding for everyone else, and it wasn't for myself.
Yeah. That makes sense. Totally.
That's, obviously I've had a lot of reflection to really kind of, really narrow it down, but that was really what was going on. I was burned out. I was tired. I was beat up, and I was angry because of everything, and I had anger to a lot of people, and, and it wasn't honestly until the cancer side of things that really put everything in perspective for me.
Yeah, you seem like a super mellow dude at this point. Like this interview started with me because I had a kind of vibe that, like you were edgy, kind of maybe even angry kind of dude. But like then I get in here, I'm like, okay, no, this guy's a big sweetheart.
Hey, well, I am also 6'1", and I'm not a little guy, so that might be a little bit kind of first. But at the end of the day, like it there was a lot of transformation that took place after my diagnosis, and a lot of reflection and a lot of honestly therapy to help me kind of work through really the shit within snowboarding that I went through. Yes, I could have stayed in it. Yes, I could have kind of kept momentum going in certain ways and this and that, but I honestly just wanted out. Yeah.
Once it's not fun for you, like once it's not like giving you what, especially as it degrades from, this exciting thing to a job or to, it's maybe even gets repetitive or whatever. I don't want to, because I had to take a hiatus from snowboarding.
Well, there was also a change in what we were trying to do. We were so focused on trying to build this new brand.
Yeah.
And then it just, I got to also say, I made mistakes in here. There was things that I didn't exactly follow through because I was too young to really realize the errors of my ways.
Yeah.
Whether that was contractual or bad interview stuff or what, not bad interview stuff, but just dumb mistakes. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the only way that you can figure these out is to understand the perspective and then to really learn from it. And I had a hard time learning from the shit that went on. And I held a lot of resentment, and that was an area that led to a period of time that was really, it was a hard period of time, you know, and probably ultimately led to the lymphoma and everything at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, just the stress
manifesting in your body
in a lot of ways, and I don't want to say that was the only reason, but I feel like it may have contributed.
Yeah. I hear you on that. That makes a lot of sense.
And especially for someone that was in the spotlight like I was for such a long period of time, it was hard,
Yeah, those transitions are difficult for pretty much everybody. It seems like.
it's funny because I actually kind of, I like to say I termed it, I guess the transition is professional athlete syndrome.
Okay.
And it's, and there's actually a technical term for it in psychology, but I'm blanking on the name of it, but
sure.
But it's, that struggle for athletes that were just so involved with it. And I mean, NBA players, NFL players, they go through it because they,
Well, the thing about snowboarding that it's fucking dangerous, right? Like big wave surfers looking at snowboarding going, that's fucking dangerous. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
Skateboarders looking at snowboarders going, that's dangerous. It's actually super insanely dangerous. So like you mentioned NBA, right? Like basketball with football. Well, football is probably not going to exist eventually because it's so friggin' silly dangerous the way they've made it with the concussions and the science that's coming out on like how much that can affect your mood and how at risk you are for suicide. And it just makes total sense. You're with this group of people. It's almost like being in an army or in a war and but like it's fun. And then you come into real life and you're working a fucking job where there's a whole other hierarchy. And now you're at the bottom and somebody's shouting at you, hey, Barney, get the sky hooks or whatever. And you're like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah.
And like, what do I do? Like, if I can't be Todd Franzen, the fucking pro snowboarder, like, do I really want to be Todd, the fucking 9-to-5 working guy?
And my identity was so stuck within being a professional snowboarder at the time. So, it's tough. It's hard on your ego. And a lot of people go through it. I definitely don't feel like I left on my own terms.
That's a big one. In 160 interviews, I think Emmanuel Krebs was the first guy. No, there have been a couple of guys. I think UC also did this, where they got shook at an avalanche that was UC. The same with Natasha Zurich.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Krebs just saw Michael Chuck do the double chuck in a contest live.
Yeah.
And he just called his sponsors and said, stop sending the checks. But that is so rare.
That is pretty funny. Actually, part of the conversation I had with Chad the other day, and this was it, I don't want to say it was heated, but it was like, I had to make sure I put it in perspective for everyone. And for me, well, obviously there's a lot of reasons, with whether it was sponsors or whatever, but during my time at 411, the DC part of Danny Way came out on the Mega Ramp, and it was put to Metallica's, Orion, I think it was.
Yeah.
And I saw that and I kind of shook my hands. I was like, snowboarding's
Maybe
Danny,
not in that controversial way. That's going to get beeped, by the way.
All right. That's fine. The point is when Danny was doing all of those tricks, when he did that switch 7 on that mega ramp, I was
snowboarding's dead, let's say. It's like snowboarding has no reason to have this big of an ego.
100%.
Yeah.
But Chad also helped kind of reiterate the expectation there as it's not that way, obviously, because there are parts of snowboarding that no other sport will ever be able to understand or to experience or feel.
Yeah. Nobody's surfing down a spine in Alaska. Nobody's skateboarding down a spine in Alaska. Not ever. There'll never be a skateboard run that's as gnarly because of the physics of it.
But not even just as gnarly, but just like that open POW field where you're just mocking, 40, 50 miles an hour.
Yeah. Doing
the longest heel side turn and right in the shadow line of and
Chad's got that picture on his wall of it's the bottom turn. And you can see how relaxed the guy is in it. And then Chad showed me the other picture of the shoot that he'd done right before that.
Yeah.
And there's this combination of like dangerous pointing with like such a relaxed, like open field, like, Like it has the best elements of surfing.
Yeah.
It has the best elements of skateboarding. And then you can take him to a whole other level. Danny Way and Matt Hoffman, like hats off to both those dudes. They're visionaries.
Yeah.
Like Jake was in products.
Yeah.
They're visionaries in where the sports can go. Like without Matt Hoffman building a 25-foot quarter pipe in whenever that was, probably 1990 or something.
Right.
Then you don't get
Mega Ramp may
Mega
not have
Ramp.
happened, and the entire series of events that happened leading up to all that is, that is so fun to watch. You know what
absolutely.
I mean? And then watching the fruits of that period of time with Danny's part was like, and I've been fortunate to meet and skate with Danny on our ramps back in the day because he was
dope.
Part of Type A, which was Rowan and Nate. At the time, and so they were in Colorado. They whatever.
Type A's Colorado. That's sick.
Well, no, it wasn't Colorado, but it was.
Oh yeah, they were California, right?
They were California, but they were out here a lot because it was.
And Danny had a pro model that was so sick.
Yeah.
There's only, there's a handful of skaters that had pro models. Lance had one, I don't need to list those. The listeners know. But Danny Way was a force.
He was a force, and within snowboarding,
even within, he didn't really make a huge mark in snowboarding because
skating was his thing. He did snowboarding because it was they were also paying him, so it was like
he probably talked to Sluggo at World, right? And Sluggo was like, "This snowboarding thing is easy and it pays better than skating."
Sluggo.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
So,
I had him on the show. You should listen to his one because it's so much fun.
Well, I got to travel to Europe with Sluggo through Airwalk, and so I got to spend some time with Sluggo.
Yeah,
and,
dope.
Some time in Switzerland, which was really cool.
Yeah, when he was on Division 23.
Well, I think he was on Division at the time, but it was an Airwalk trip that we were out there with, so Tim Schwartz was out there.
Rad.
It was Sluggo and then Kevin Young as well.
Oh,
so it was the three of us.
Canadian royalty right there.
Man, it was.
So is Sluggo. Love you, Sluggo. But come on, Kevin Young.
Oh yeah.
Like watching that guy ride live.
Well, you have Canadian skate, legend and Canadian snowboard legend.
Exactly.
So I was in good company for sure.
Yeah, that would have been an all-time trip. Kevin's just so smooth and so. I'm trying to have him on the show again so we can try and find some common ground between the very strong conspiracy theorist guys, and I guess I'm a lefty, but I don't even know what that means. I'm like a science guy. Let's get working on social issues, and he's like, let's stop the Queen from eating babies and setting up the Catholic Church to rape people, which hey, look, there's truth in what he's talking about. I want to find the common ground so that we can talk about it. Yeah. Because I think the divide on those crazy issues can make it so that people won't talk. But Kevin Young, my respect for that guy is so deep that I don't even care if he believes that he's an alien. I don't. There is no belief he was
an alien. He fucking snowboarded like a motherfucker.
Exactly.
Man.
I'm on. I
love you, Kevin.
I want Kevin to always be someone I can talk to. You know what I mean? Like I would never write him off.
Yeah.
Not ever.
No.
So
even to this day, Kevin's just
And there's several people that I've talked to about it that I'm just trying to find some way in that's not what is the natural way for the other side of the argument, which is to convince them that they sound like idiots.
Yeah.
Which, if you actually talk to him, he doesn't sound like an idiot. I mean, he sounds like someone to me personally that has beliefs that are fantastic. But I can't argue with him and say like, hey, look, if this adrenochrome thing is real, then why don't we just get some and use it to defeat them? Like, why wouldn't we have the supernatural powers? All we have to do is find somebody whose kids don't matter, and then scare them and get the adrenochrome out of the scared kids. And then we could, kill the people that are scaring the good kids.
Right.
It's like, look, it's a difficult thing to have friends that have beliefs that aren't the same beliefs as you, but it's not hard to snowboard with those guys.
It's not that hard to be, it's absolutely okay to have completely different beliefs and to have completely different opinions, right?
Right.
And to be able to talk about it. I guarantee you we have different opinions about stuff and different beliefs and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, to have, a civil discourse and just to have a little bit of respect that like maybe each person's experience in their lives has led them to their beliefs of this, know, and you cannot deny their experiences. And that is really what it is. At the end of the day.
If I'm on the wrong side of this, I'm a total asshole. You know what I mean? If children are being harmed and what Kevin and his people that he's, his belief system is affiliated with are keeping children from being harmed, I'm on their side. Like 100%. I support you guys 100%. That's what it comes down to. And I get into these little nuanced things with friends because I'm testing the waters with like, how do we communicate across this divide? And what's the Delta variant now? It's the
Omicron or something.
Yeah. So the Omicron variant the word can be, remixed into media control. All the letters fit. Yeah. But then I just used it.
You can also say the same with Delta and with the regular one too.
Okay, but this is the best part of it, is that I just Googled what the other, like some other ones, I can remember them. Moonlit cedar. That's another, you can, the Omicron or almond. Erotic almond.
Have you seen the
or clarinet doom? That's a good one. Maybe it's clarinet doom. Maybe everybody's gonna be playing clarinet so loud that we're all gonna die. Who knows?
Right. No one knows a thing. You know. I think a good kind of parody of it all is the new South Park show. Have you seen that?
I haven't, but I know that they do a really good job.
They hit it out of the park. They are able to joke because like when you kind of, again, take kind of the macro picture of what is going on with this coronavirus, because, I have pretty strong feelings about the coronavirus, especially because of what I went through within the hospital and everything else. And during my transplant, with the vaccine, whether you like it or not, and I have family members, not in our household per se, that they're scared of the vaccine because obviously there are people that don't feel like it is tested enough and it was rushed through and all this.
That's probably right too, actually. Hey. Those are good arguments.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But it doesn't change my feeling about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I honestly see it as like, it's going to be like the flu moving forward.
That's what this new variant probably is already, is what I'm starting to hear. I don't want to spread misinformation. I don't know anything. So don't get your information about coronavirus from the FNRad Snowboard podcast, please.
or from Todd Franzen.
This is just two guys chewing the fat about what's going on in our world.
Yeah, totally.
I got both vaccines because I wanted to travel.
Sure.
I thought this is great. And then someone pointed out, well, you can still get sick. And I was like, what? Come again?
Well,
that's not the way that works.
Here's the thing. It's like, supposedly you can still carry it and you can still whatever, but it lessens the effects of what could happen.
Absolutely.
But,
people being afraid of a virus is... that's common sense.
Sure.
You should be afraid of a deadly virus.
Yeah.
And if you overreact as a world, which that's my opinion, I think there was a bit of an overreaction.
Yeah.
That's kind of acceptable. I've overreacted when my kids are in danger.
Well, yeah.
It happens.
And if you think about, you go back in history, just in the last 2 years, right? From when it kind of came out, no one knew anything, right? So we go into lockdowns. No one knows anything. We don't. Nothing is known about this.
Right,
you know what I mean? So of course there's fear. There's people are scared just just, what if it was another Spanish flu?
Right. Right.
There's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah,
and then
remember
as
that
we start
feeling.
learning more about it,
Yep.
It becomes easier to kind of tolerate and to handle.
Yep.
Here's the bitch of it, though. The amount of resources that was spent into this.
Yeah, man.
For everything, for this, still, I mean, in the short amount of time, there are still less deaths than there are of cancer.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah.
It comes in number 3 behind cancer and heart disease. Heart disease being 1, cancer number 2.
Yeah. See, I'm such a lefty guy. I had the same outrage feeling, and it was about the environment. Like, marched in this climate walk with 10,000 people in Vancouver. The prime minister joins in these walks. Yeah, you're marching for climate. Oh, good for you. Well, do something about it, asshole. We're marching against you.
Yeah, start working on policies that will make this it better.
Only 10,000 people. Oh, well, there's not much money for climate change initiatives. But then coronavirus fucking comes up a few months later.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, actually, we've got trillions of dollars just sitting around that we can make up for something. And I remember at the time being super mad, being like, oh, old white people are going to die? Oh, I see what's happening here. Yeah, well, we all of a sudden got a whole bunch of money for old white people.
Yeah, there's, the difficulty of what this has brought to the table on all aspects, whether it's, all the social issues or financial issues, is really the disparity between, I mean, it's said, it's very well known. It's, the top 1% and then the rest of us.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the color of our skin, has nothing to do with our upbringing. Yeah, those are a lot of things that happened in our past.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that has nothing to do with it now. It's only being fed to us as a way to continue dividing us in order for the top 1% to continue.
Well, this is an interesting conversation, and we're getting into it from exactly what we're talking about. When I knew as soon as you said we're going to be on the other sides of some of these things. Yeah. I mean, I feel a real connection to my own experience, one person's experience in a racist system. Sure. I mean, Canada is still committing genocide against the indigenous population, the original nations of both our countries.
Yeah.
There was no border between the two of us, and there were millions of people here.
Yeah.
It's a lot of trauma, and it's crazy. And I low-key benefited from this white supremacist mindset my whole life, and I was blind to the struggle of people that were right next to me in my classrooms, in, like Russell in our peer group. Mm-hmm. Like, he had a different experience when he came to 100%. Breckenridge than, the rest of the ride team, let's say.
100%.
But we were so, like, I was taught by the exact same school system that created the residential school system. It's the same government created both things.
Yep.
And so I'm also brainwashed into thinking that Native people should be brought up to speed to the white people's thing. That's what I was told. But now going back and reading, I'm like, they have some ideas that would have completely solved this climate crisis before it started. Like, instead of having rights, you have responsibilities. If my parents had told me I had responsibilities my whole life, instead of pushing me to know my rights and to strive for what's rightfully mine, I would be a different person. And I feel like I want to do whatever I can do to help even the playing field a little bit or make it better than it's been. That being said, there's a very strong argument for, like, so the Facebook algorithm being tuned for division. Yeah. Which is, I believe, I'm guessing that's your side of what this is. I'm not going to fight those facts.
No.
I don't think there's any difference from the moment I walked in here till now. even if we have beliefs on the other side of a wide chasm.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, our views might be even just a little bit off of each other. But I think our goals and our way of wanting to present our ideas are similar. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
We know that there's been issues in our past that has led us to where we're at today. You know what I mean? But we cannot forget about what we have tried to accomplish and the people that have come before to get to a place to where we're at. We're not there yet. We have a long way to go.
Yeah. And,
there's the best way that I know how is coming back to just that personal responsibility,
Absolutely.
And treating everyone with love and respect.
Right.
And it doesn't matter to me, like,
which is
who it is, you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely.
At the end of the day, to overcome a lot of the bullshit that we are fed, whether it's through the media or through social media or the hate that comes from all these different areas.
Mm-hmm. The divide,
because it's happening on purpose.
It's happening on purpose.
It's very well documented. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we have to continue just to show love.
Yeah.
And to show that respect to one another.
I agree with you on that 100%. And I agree with everything you just said. Like, I think we are on the same page. I think there's an outrage machine that is out there trying to get someone like yourself, someone like me to write off the other side.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like
100%.
When Nico posted something, and I don't want to misquote him, let's just say it was offensive in a way that it got me even. And I'm like, I consider myself an acquaintance, you know? I think he's an amazing snowboarder and a great person. And I found myself feeling like, fuck that guy.
That's not good.
That's not good. That's not cool. I had an experience on the chairlift with Dave Hatchett where I had just had the best time with this guy that I'd ever had, 2 days of snowboarding with Dave Hatchett. Are you kidding me?
Awesome.
Yeah. And then he says, but you got to admit, Trump's getting shit done. And I went, oh no, I'm supposed to not like you now.
Well,
how can I?
Right.
I'm supposed to.
Right.
But I can't not like you. Yeah, you're have your opinion. It's fine.
Again, it comes back to the macro, and you have to also look into history of like, why did things happen the way they did? Why did Trump come into office? And it had to do with things that happened beforehand.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And it's, the discontent of people and what they were feeling during those times. Then we get Trump in there. He's just a fucking buffoon. And then it just goes, it's a continuation of the status quo.
Yes.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And our leaders do not care about us. They don't care. The only thing they care about is the money, and they continue to, they're robbing us blind. They're robbing our kids blind, man.
Yes.
And it's so fucking obvious.
Yeah.
For me, like, I've had to take a huge step back from social media.
Yeah.
And I'm conflicted about it because I have website stuff, and it's not just Strapping for Life, but I have some, I have my personal website that I share my entire cancer story with, and then all the things that I've experienced through that, mostly mental health stuff, right?
That's really good, man. Thank you for sharing that.
And it's, internalarchitect.com. And it's a blog. It's also, I have just under 400 videos on YouTube.
Right.
And it's just, it's there's no money in it by any means. It's just, it was my way of being able to work through all the shit that I was personally going through, through my
tool,
journey.
And you're trying to reach other people and help people that are going through similar stuff.
And the conflict sits there because I use the tools for, to try to get the message out. But at the same time, I'm trying to not be on the tools just for my own sanity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why when I was texting with you earlier, it's like, I don't really like being on Instagram all that much. Shoot me a text. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
I don't love having a billion different, well, not really. I've got like 4 main ways that I contact with people.
Yeah.
And it's a bitch to have, even a couple of times checking the messages from you, I just get sucked in, and then you're going, "What was I doing again?"
Oh yeah,
I
completely removed Facebook, the app, from my phone.
Good for you, man.
Dude, but I get these goddamn texts from them like every fucking day. Like, you have 10 people. Oh, you're like, and then,
fuck off, Instagram.
It's great because you could be friends with Kurt Wastel.
Yeah,
you could be friends with Luisa Paquera, who's my sister-in-law. Like, you could be friends with Todd Franzen. Like, it just goes to show just how and now they're like, to change the whole subject off of the fucking bullshit that they were doing. Now they're rebranding themselves.
Yeah. Metaverse.
And it's just like,
it's
God, dude.
Metaverse is, it's just a ploy to make you feel better about the fact you're on your phone 6 hours a day. Like I do this every time we talk about this shit. I'll out myself 100%. Every time. This is my phone time for today, and it's always 8 hours and 36 minutes. 8 hours of my day, a full work shift with an unpaid break. I was on my fucking phone today.
Yeah, but you also have to remember that, social media is the way that you get the podcast out. It's the way that it's a big tool for you, and you use it more of that.
But what we're moving towards is this metaverse bullshit thing where you wake up in the morning, you look at your phone, you're on your phone, you're completely connected to this stupid metaverse bullshit. And they're trying to get to 100% of your day. That you never get out of your bed. You just lie there on your phone, and food comes through a tube. And fuck that.
And how about fucking Zuckerberg fucking with his Oculus? He wants you fucking so locked in. Dude. It's like, no, fuck you. Dude.
No, we got to say no. And the best way to say no is to get outside, go snowboarding. 100%. That's my favorite way to do it. But I just call myself out. 8 hours 36 minutes. That's a long ass motherfucker on a phone. For someone, I would have guessed 2 hours. I would have guessed 2.5, 3 hours.
So I have time limit set on my phone.
Good for you.
I have 30 minutes for Instagram.
30. Good.
And I have about an hour and a half or so on YouTube as well. So, those are the two. And then, I don't even really get on like LinkedIn or Twitter. I have an account.
Do you? Yeah, so do I, but I've never used it. I used it one time.
But I don't, I guess one of the biggest reflections, especially after the second bout of cancer, is just how important my time is to me. My free time. Like, I really don't watch a lot of TV. I do occasionally sit down with my wife and watch a couple shows that we have always been interested in.
Yeah.
Other than that, I don't like watching TV. I am aware of the amount of time I'm spending on my phone. And I'm just, like earlier today, like I got out for about an hour and a half bike ride today.
Sick.
Just pedaling around Frisco, around the peninsula today. And I'm doing the things that I need to make myself, one, stronger, and two, just feel better. And deal with that stress, you know, try to keep those cortisol levels a little lower.
Yeah, man, that's sick.
It's hard, it's hard in this day and age because we are so sucked into our fucking devices.
The connection. I mean, there are positive things, and hopefully one day we'll get to the point where our phones and the technology that we use enhance our lives. You know what I mean? And they do in some ways. Like, I'm connected to you because of this thing.
Totally.
But how the fuck is it possible that everybody's on their phone all the time and they're in the lineups at the resorts in the way of going snowboarding?
Well, I mean,
too many people.
That's the thing is when you get in the lines and you're waiting, say you have a 10-minute lift line, you're just on your fucking phone.
And hey, I'm not gonna lie, we're up there trying to get clips
in the grocery store
too,
on your fucking phone.
Yeah.
100%. Just in the restaurant 100%. On the phone. Like it's so absurd.
Yeah, seeing people in like I was talking earlier, being connected with my kids, seeing, like, I took my daughter out for ramen and it was so good. But to be on our phones would be sacrilegious. It's like a dad and his daughter out at a restaurant.
Totally.
And right beside us were like a mom and her daughter, it looked like, and just scrolling. Both of them just scrolling.
Yeah, because they get that fucking dopamine hit every and it's such a minor amount, but it's so addictive, and they just
Dopamine Nation. I don't know who wrote that, but that's a book I'm getting for Christmas, and it's all about this whole shit. This is how we got here.
Yeah,
and I don't know how we're gonna get out, but
I'm blanking on the movie name, but there's a really good The Social Dilemma.
Yeah.
Phenomenal movie.
I just listened to those guys.
It helps put into perspective kind of the psychology behind
100%
behind what it is that goes on here.
It's depressing to watch that thing. It's kind of crazy that it's on Netflix, which is kind of the same thing. You know what I mean?
There's a little bit there. I mean, yeah, Netflix is guilty of it as well, but they are also coming from the era of movies too.
Yep.
You know, where there was a time where we would go to the movie theater, and we would go watch a movie.
Yeah, think about when you were a kid, you'd watch like 3 movies a year.
Yeah, except if there were a snowboard movie, you were just stuck in front of it all day long.
yeah, that's how we opened it, right? Like, at the shop, you'd see, it slowly became this thing where media was all around and all pervasive, and was, affecting the way we talked and we dressed, and
it was a fight for our attention.
Yeah,
that's
what it
is.
That's what it always is. And it's ironic we're talking about that on a podcast that wants your attention. You know what? I've never worried about the growing the show. I've never worried about the numbers. Every once in a while, I'll look and go, "Holy shit,
that's pretty cool.
That's dope." And also, in the beginning, I didn't look at it because it would give me anxiety.
Right.
Like, oh shit, 600 people just heard me say the dumbest thing I've ever said in my whole life. That's embarrassing.
But that's also, kind of the age that we're moving into. And it's funny, I'm trying to remember exactly what I saw recently about kind of old Zucker's fucking change to the rebranding and everything, and kind of his goals of what he sees moving forward. And it's and then you kind of throw the decentralized new technology that's happening as well into the mix of this, and there's a lot of and throw AI and throw all these different elements into this whole world, and it really, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity in there as well,
big time.
So again, there's the conflict side, like, I want to spend my free time doing the things that I want.
Yep.
How can I also kind of benefit a little bit from that so that I have the free time?
Yes.
So I'm not working.
That's what it's going to be. Like, can't you feel that in your heart? Like, we aren't going to accept this to the point where we're killing each other, where we hate half the people in the world. We have to hold companies to make my life better. Like, if me being on my phone is keeping me from connecting with my family, that's a significant failure of this technology.
100%.
If it's making me want to kill somebody, that is a significant failure of this fucking technology. If I'm losing friends, that's a significant failure of this technology. We need this thing to work for us, not us to work for it.
Right.
And that's where we're headed with these, because with the AI being on, I think they're on the third round of, like AI developing AI. Mm-hmm. And they're so advanced at this point, and a lot of people are starting to hear about it for sure. But with all the other crap information floating out there, we're not talking about microchips in a COVID serum. We're talking about real life computers that know more about all of us than we know about ourselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so that sounds scary. But if they know more, then they could help us more.
Right.
Like, hey, buddy, my phone should be like, hey, buddy, you really want to eat that hamburger? Because that's not good for you.
Well,
and it's time to go to bed and put me down. That's the measure, is when your phone just shuts off and goes, "Fuck you, dude! You're just about to you wrote the rudest thing that you've ever said in your life to somebody that you like.
Yeah.
I'm not letting you send that, and you're on a timeout for like 2 days.
Yeah.
Go out in the woods. You're not going to hear from anybody. Go do something outside.
You're cut for a while.
You're cut. Fuck
God,
you.
if it was only that easy.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
God, that would be great because that would actually be phenomenal. But there's too fucking much money in it all,
Yes.
and the greed side of it,
Big time.
Yeah, you just have to, the part of everything that I've been through up to this point with, and I talk about cancer a lot. I like talking about it. I like talking about snowboarding. I like talking about mountain biking. I like talking about these things because it helps me just kind of work through potential, problems that I see not only for myself, but for future, people in the future as well,
Yeah.
So it's a simple, for me, it's kind of a simple thing that there's a limitation to how much I want to consume.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, I need to be involved with it a little bit. I use a little bit of a copywriting AI program that helps me kind of work through writer's block a little bit as well.
Cool.
And it's phenomenal.
Send me the link, dude. I'm writing a book right now.
Yeah.
I need that. I'm all stuck up.
It is really, really cool. And,
Cool.
you still have to kind of help guide it.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's all your ideas, but they help. It's like being able to help enunciate the things that are going on in your head is all it is.
And it's like editing. Like I'll edit a bunch of this out to make us both sound better.
Oh, I appreciate it. And by all means, hit that beat button as many.
That's going to be a fun one.
I'd fucking love that, man.
I loved it too because it was so natural. And I mean, I talk with people in a demographic where our language was that. And I don't, it doesn't even bother me. It's just, I know that the cancel culture is out there.
Yeah.
It does. Okay. I don't want to say it doesn't bother me. Like what Terry said, for example, it's a funny joke. He made, it's a bad English, but he made a joke that the structure is sound. The problem is there's people on the side of the joke that are going to be hurt by that joke. Right. So then being hurt by a joke is fucking, it's not necessary anymore. Be funny writing something fucking funny. Don't write something that's like trashing on anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Who puts it into really good perspective is Dave Chappelle.
Absolutely. Who I'm on a boycott Chappelle right now because he's fucking out. My buddy's son is trans and a trans activist.
Yep.
And there's just no excuse these days for making fun of somebody who's already 50% more at risk than the general population for fucking suicide.
Yep.
Dude, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
There's a struggle there, and Dave Chappelle he's a great guy to bring up because he's been an advocate on the side of let's talk about these things. Let's make fun of ourselves.
Let's talk about them, and my oldest daughter, Raina, has a friend that she grew up with who is also trans, and great guy.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
And is obviously had to go through a lot of struggle to get to where he is at today.
Mm-hmm.
I can only imagine, and I, wish him the most luck, most love.
Totally.
I obviously can't understand where he's coming from.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And he doesn't expect me to understand that either, but just to have mutual respect is awesome. And he snowboards.
Ah, dope. Yeah. That's
good
awesome.
at it too, actually.
Yeah. That's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah. I think my intention is to learn, right?
Yeah.
So for example, there's somebody in the snowboard industry from the very beginning that transitioned that has done some historical stuff that's really important. And I want to have her on the show. And so I asked my buddy's son, do I bring up the trans thing? And he said, well, that depends. Is it an interview about them being trans? And are they a trans activist?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I don't know either of the answers to either of those. Oh, yeah, I do know that it's not an interview about them being trans at all.
Right.
It's about what they did in the history of snowboarding.
Yeah.
And he said, well, then I wouldn't even bring it up.
Yeah.
Unless they say that's something important for them to bring up. Like, just like if I came in here and said, no cancer, buddy, we're not talking about cancer. Like
Right.
that would offend you, right?
No, it wouldn't offend me because I have a number of things outside of cancer that I can talk about.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
It's even though it has been something that's been about, been in my life and part of my life for about a quarter of it.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my life.
Yeah.
But if we were to just not talk about it, like if you kind of set some guideline, sure.
Right.
That's because I'm not going to be offended by it.
I guess that was a bad example. It would be
No,
more of
but
an
you-
example
but you-
if I came in here and just assumed,
Sure.
let's do this, this cancer thing. Tell me everything that happened. And you're like, well, that's my personal fucking life.
But I think you brought up a really good point, and this is something that is really hard, is like when you kind of get to know someone, like where can the discussion go and where can it not go? And there's no real like guideline that, for people that don't understand the experience to go, to bring up, to talk about,
True.
how do you do that? That's really, really a difficult thing.
Absolutely.
And, it's whether you can joke about it, whether you can, bluntly talk about it, or, there's a real big gray area there.
Right. And I felt it nowhere more than with Russell Winfield, who I consider a friend at this point, but I grew up in this paradox. Russell was a token black guy in the industry, in my opinion. Oh man, I could probably ride better than Russell is what I thought. Why is he in the movie? There's other guys that are better. And I didn't realize that that's just white centering. And that's like, he's an other. And so like, I'm all automatically from my upbringing looking at like, well, why does he have what I have the right to? I have the right to what, like, why is he getting something just because he's different? You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
So like that is inside of me, that I had that lived experience of thinking those things. And now I'm sitting with Russell Winfield, looking in his eyes and knowing he's a really good person and having snowboarded with him.
Yeah.
And also not knowing not to be like, dude, teach me, because it's not his job to be like, oh yeah, I had this fucking different experience than you my whole life.
Right.
Which low key, you had this amazing experience in comparison to, being able to say to a cop while I'm drinking booze, like, hey, fuck, what did you want me to do? Chug it at my house and then drive drunk over here? Yeah, I drank and drove in the car. Like, what do you want me to do, asshole? Like, come on, what are you being a bit of a dick? Which Russell would have had a completely different experience if he had decided to do that.
100%,
and not recognizing that. But you bring up a great point. So how do we have these conversations?
And how can we feel, whether it's with a trans person, whether it's with a black person, or even, Hispanic person, or anyone outside, Asian person, how do we have a conversation to where we can at least feel like there's some sort of common ground? Because right now, what is being portrayed is that all white people are demons.
Sure.
I had actually a really interesting comment on one of my videos. So I have a plethora of videos from, what's it like to go through cancer? What's the Hippocratic Oath? To just, what's a PET scan, to, all the above here.
Cool, man.
And it's really kind of a strange thing that there's this, for the Hippocratic Oath, like, thou shalt do no harm is the essence of of what that means. It goes into a much deeper wording, and it's actually the UN has kind of taken over what the Hippocratic Oath means and whatnot. But someone left the most hateful comment, basically saying that I'm the white devil, that I am basically fuck you and all your fucking family and all this shit. And it was like, I took a screenshot of it because I was like, wow. Apparently you have a lot of hate in your fucking head right now, because that's fucked up.
Yeah, totally. And be flattered. They think that your platform has a big enough viewership that they can get their message out on your back. There's something really, really simple that I'd like to bring up here, and really, really important, that I'm still on my very first step of trying to figure out how to have those conversations we were talking about. I'm just going to cut in here to give props to the person whose knowledge I'm sharing here. Layla F. Sad wrote the book Me and White Supremacy, and I strongly recommend buying it and reading it. Layla articulates many of the major hurdles to becoming a better friend, ally, advocate, etc., and it's informed my opinion, which is always transforming and learning and growing. Me and White Supremacy by Layla F. Sad. Thank you to my wife, Terry Lynn, for supporting me through these first awkward steps towards being a better person and telling me about Layla and her work as a Black activist. And you just gave a really, really good example, because you are an other in that you're a cancer survivor. So you, to someone who's never had cancer, can answer some questions. It doesn't mean you want to, but because of your nature, you've become an advocate and a spokesperson and someone that people can approach to ask some questions.
Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
If you want to bridge that gap with any other, and any minority or anything that's not who you are, fucking Google it.
Yeah, Google is
Google it.
I mean, Google is an amazing resource.
Just
really
put in
is.
what your intentions are.
Yeah.
How do I speak with a Black person? I'm white. Google that shit and you'll get resources out the yin yang. And the top resource, well, you got to watch out for the first two because they're going to be ads.
Yeah. The
top one is the one that's worked for the most people. That's the beauty of Google.
Yeah.
So Google it. It's the easiest way to do it. If you're going to be in a situation where you're feeling a little bit uncomfortable and you want to be fucking cool and not weird,
right?
Fucking Google it.
And I think another thing is a lot of it comes down to intention, right?
Mm-hmm.
It comes down to, intention and also just the interest in learning,
Totally.
And maybe it's just me with, cause I've, between Russell and Salmas Katela and just the group of the solid African Americans that are within the snowboarding community, like just ask the question, mm-hmm. and make sure it comes from a really good place of intention.
Well, Google it first because it'll tell you, don't ask them the question. They've already had this fucking experience their whole life.
Sure.
Where maybe they haven't done what you've done, which is write a blog, 400 videos.
Yeah.
Now go and Google who's done that and ask that person.
Right.
And then your fucking relationship with those dudes is going to be smooth sailing.
Love it.
That's what it is, man. And I'm not preaching
yourself.
this shit. I'm just trying to learn it. I'm on that first step. And the first step is the intention that you're talking about. Learn about it. So
Damon Morris, sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
I was totally chemo brained right there. I was like, yeah.
I love that.
Oh my
that
God.
is such a good, that is a great place to end it, I think, because we've done, how long does it say on there? It's got to be a couple hours.
Almost 3 hours.
Almost 3 hours. It has been an absolute pleasure to meet you, Todd Franzen. And thank you for inspiring me in snowboarding. Seeing you in the magazines made a difference in my life. And
you're welcome.
And
man. It's always fun to and even though we may not have talked a lot about snowboarding stuff, we got into some deeper conversation.
Sure.
And that to me is such that means so much more in so many ways.
Sure.
And so I so much appreciate you having me on and just, being able to make this work, because this is really cool, man.
Well, thank you, man. Like, I really feel like that was a fun conversation. And we touched on a lot of amazing shit, dude. Awesome.
It's cool to talk about, especially in our interesting current environment right now. So, yeah.
And if maybe one person out there that's listened and then was like mad that we're starting to talk about this stuff, got one idea that they're like, you know what? Maybe I don't hate my brother or some other person in their family that's just got like an opposing view on something. Who cares? You can have opposing views. They're important.
It's okay. It's okay to be passionate, but it's more important to have respect and to love.
Love. That's it. Yeah. Operating in hate is not going to get you to where you want to go.
Awesome.
That's where
I love it. I love it.
Great to meet you, man.
Fuck yeah, man.
Awesome.
Beep.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Todd Franzen and his family for inviting me into their home. You can support his nonprofit by going to strapinforlife.org and hitting that donate button to contribute to this rad project. And be sure to come back next week for another episode of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast, presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.